Chapter 1066. Chapter 1064. Suspicious Opponent. I know! Xiao Xiao didn't mind, however. It was better if she was a newbie. She didn't have much of a chance of winning against a famous racer, after all. This was also for the sake of fairness. The organizers of the underground race would usually arrange for competitors who were on par with each other to compete together. If the difference in strength between the two sides was too great, then the competition would be one-sided, and there would be no meaning to it. The people watching the competition wouldn't have any passion. The last class ended at 4, and Xiao Xiao drove here at 5 as well. There were only 20 minutes left until the match started at 6. The music in the field started. The match was about to begin. For the first race, contestants TT000 and 2B941, please get ready. The announcer's voice came from the sound system. This was a necessary procedure before the race, so please prepare yourselves. 2B941. You're an idiot? Xiao Xiao was pissed off at the number. Wasn't that a car number for insulting people? She was an idiot just because she was competing with him? Lin Yi smiled and shrugged. It's just a car number, what's there to care about? Let's go, it's our turn. You're driving? Xiao Xiao nodded to Lin Yi. It was only then that the young man noticed Lin Yi getting out of the Audi TT. He pointed at Lin Yi, his eyes wide. You! Aren't you that expert driver? Lin Yi nodded at him. That's right, he's my husband now. Xiao Xiao looked at the young man's shocked face and held on to Lin Yi's arm, pleased with herself. Phone sis, you're amazing! If he were to race today, wouldn't he win for sure? The young man said respectfully. Humph, that's for sure. Xiao Xiao nodded and got back in the car. Lin Yi followed Xiao Xiao's instructions and stopped the car at the intersection of the mountain road. The crowd didn't pay too much attention to Xiao Xiao's Audi TT, since the first race was a newbie race. The car wouldn't be too good, and Xiao Xiao's car hadn't been modified, so it probably wouldn't be that good. As for the car 2B941, it had yet to arrive. He did not know what car it was. But Lin Yi was driving a car, so he was a new face, while Xiao Xiao was a familiar face. The crowd started making a ruckus, thinking that Lin Yi was a rich guy that Xiao Xiao had hooked up with. At about 5:50 a.m., a Land Rover Discovery 4 arrived late, and his photo was taken by 2B941. Although the size of the Land Rover was relatively large, the driving skills of the driver could not be underestimated. The speed was jaw-dropping. With a drift, the Land Rover reached the starting point of the mountain crossing. But the drift was too violent, and it only stopped when it was 1 or 2 centimeters away from Xiao Xiao's Audi TT. Xiao Xiao shrieked, sweating profusely. Xiao Xiao was sitting in the front passenger seat, and the Rover's drift almost hit her. She was very scared. Xiao Xiao was pissed off. How could this guy drive like that? She rolled down the window and glared at the driver. Do you even know how to drive? Why are you so close to me? Hey girl, you're quite the shrew. A bald man with sunglasses stuck his head out from the driver's seat as well, smiling at Xiao Xiao. Girl, get in my car? I'll take you for a ride? Fuck off. Xiao Xiao glared at the baldy, pissed off. This baldy's driving skills were clearly not bad, and Xiao Xiao had no chance of winning if she were to race him. They had agreed that Xiao Xiao would be driving, and Lin Yi would be helping her, but looking at the baldy's attitude, Xiao Xiao knew that she was no match for him. She gave up on the idea and turned to Lin Yi. Lin Yi honey, you should drive later. This baldy seems to be pretty good. Hey girl, how do you know I'm good? Haven't you tried? Why don't you come with me tonight? I promise I'll make you wish you were dead. The baldy said pervertedly as he looked at Xiao Xiao. It's fine, I'll carry you and drive. Lin Yi smiled at Xiao Xiao. Carry me and drive? Shi Xiao's eyes went wide as she looked at Lin Yi. She couldn't believe it. Racing was a dangerous thing to do, and this guy was carrying her in his arms while driving? What kind of danger was that? Was Lin Yi just trying to make her happy? But even if Lin Yi was just trying to make her happy, Xiao Xiao's heart was filled with happiness and sweetness. Linny was willing to put himself in danger just to make her happy. This touched her to the core. It's fine. It's too dangerous. Xiao Xiao shook her head. What if the car crashes and we die? It's not dangerous. Linny shook his head nonchalantly. I haven't even had a threesome with you yet, how could I die? Xiao Xiao was usually very bold, and she often said things that shocked the world, but Lin Yi's words made her a little embarrassed. Her face reddened as she said shyly, Really? It's not dangerous? Trust me. With that, Lin Yi got off the car and walked to Xiao's side. The rover was parked a little too close, and Xiao Xiao couldn't even open the door. Lin Yi frowned and knocked on the rover's window, impatient. Move the car to the side, don't block the road. Who the hell are you, pretty boy? The Baldy was evidently pissed off at Lin Yi for getting off the car all of a sudden. He glared at Lin Yi and ignored Lin Yi's request. I told you to move the car, didn't you hear me? Lin Yi didn't want to argue with him, but this guy's stubbornness made Lin Yi impatient. The Baldy closed the window, looking like a dead pig not afraid of boiling water. He didn't care about Lin Yi at all. F***ck him up, F***ck him up. The surrounding youths started yelling. These kinds of heated scenes were what they loved the most. It was common for racing to cause bloodshed, but it was rare for a fight to happen before the race even started. Wah wah, beat him up! Someone else started yelling. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't care about the shouts. The Baldy didn't move, so Lin Yi raised his leg and kicked at the rover. 2 thuds sounded, and the front of the rover tilted from Lin Yi's kick. 2 huge dents appeared on the front of the car. Chapter 1067. A strong way. They'd seen a lot of strong people, but not as strong as Lin Yi. The guy didn't even move his car, and he just kicked it away. The Baldy's eyes darkened as well. He didn't think that Lin Yi was this strong, and he seemed to be a master too. A dark look flashed across his eyes, but with the sunglasses, no one could see the change in his expression. Seeing Lin Yi kick his car away, the Baldy didn't continue cursing, nor did he get out of the car. He fell into deep thought. Could this guy be Xiao's bodyguard? The situation was getting complicated. The surrounding men and women saw that the bald-headed sunglasses man was kicked out of the car by Yang Ming, but he didn't make any reaction. He still stayed in the car and didn't move. They immediately sneered. This was a naked provocation. His car was kicked, and he didn't even dare to make a sound. Was he even a man? Coward! You're too weak. That's all you got, and you're still acting? Where's your courage? Weren't you calling him a pretty boy? Do you dare say that again? That's right, who's a pretty boy? That's called manliness, and hands, don't be fooled by your big bald head. You look fierce, but it's useless. You're the soft pretty boy. You're the idiot. Faced with the curses of the onlookers, the bald-headed sunglasses man was about to explode, but he still endured it. This wasn't the time to get angry. This was a rare opportunity, and he couldn't ruin this match because of his anger. Lin Yi looked at the Baldy in the car, and a faint smile appeared on his face. The Baldy's weird behavior was starting to make Lin Yi suspicious. He kicked his car, and he didn't react at all. This wasn't how a normal person would behave. Plus, this didn't match the Baldy's arrogant personality. Lin Yi's suspicions troubled the Baldy as well. He could see Lin Yi's suspicions, but there was nothing he could do. Previously, in order to make himself look more like a hooligan who came here to race, he used some of the methods and tone that hooligans often use to flirt with girls. This was also to make himself blend into this group. But he didn't think that the man next to Xiao would be this cocky, kicking his car just because of a few words. He was a violent maniac from head to toe, and the Baldy was puzzled. Where did Xiao find this guy? Why was he so violent? But it was too late for regrets now. The Baldy didn't want to get into a conflict with Lin Yi right now. If the two were to fight before the race started, it would affect the race later. If the organizers decided to cancel the race or split the two up, that wasn't something the Baldy wanted to see. It hadn't been easy for him to wait for this opportunity. Xiao had finally bumped into his strong point, and he didn't want to give up just like that. It didn't matter if people suspected him or scolded him now, as long as it didn't affect the race and he achieved his goal. Luckily, Linny looked at him and saw that he wasn't getting out. He ignored him and opened Xiao's door, letting her out. Xiao frowned as she looked at the Rover beside her. The Rover's engine capacity was double that of her Audi TT. Wasn't she just going to lose if she raced with a car like that? This part of the road had been abandoned for a long time, too, and the Rover had the advantage. The Audi TT, on the other hand, was clearly at a disadvantage. Linny, honey, maybe we should ask for a change of match? His car, Xiao said worriedly as she looked at the Baldy's Rover. It's fine. Linny waved his hand faintly. Normally, Linny would have listened to Xiao's suggestion, but now, Linny felt that there was something wrong with this Baldy. Naturally, he wanted to see what his goal was. Linny adjusted the driver's seat so that two people could sit in it. Linny got in first before turning to Xiao. Xiao, get in! Xiao saw how confident Linny was, so she got in without hesitation. This meant that Linny was driving with Xiao in his arms. After all, this was a very dangerous move. Even if it wasn't a car, it was a very dangerous move on normal roads, and Linny just had to use it on an even more dangerous car. Oh! The surrounding men and women exclaimed in surprise. They'd seen some difficult moves before, like the guy driving while the girl next to him helped him hit the plane. But that was child's play compared to what Linny was doing. Hugging each other with 4 arms and 4 legs like this. One slight misstep and the car would crash. The spectators, naturally, liked exciting moves, and they all cheered excitedly at Lin Yi's bravery. The bald-headed sunglasses man in the Land Rover naturally saw this scene, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. He never would have thought that Lin Yi would do something this dangerous, but this was good. It saved him a lot of energy. This way, Xiao's car would go out of control even more easily. But how Lin Yi was going to race, and whether or not he was going to lose his life, wasn't something the spectators cared about. Lin Yi's death had nothing to do with them. There had been a lot of car crashes and deaths in the past year, but even if someone died, no one would break the rules and spread the news. Silence, the race is about to begin. The organizer's voice came from the speakers in the square, and a man who looked like a judge walked over with a flag, standing not far from the Audi TT and the Rover. He'll wave the flag later, and we can run. Xiao explained to Lin Yi. How do we do it? I'll be in charge of the accelerator and brake, and I'll hold your hand to control the steering wheel, Lin Yi said. All right, no problem. Xiao nodded excitedly. In fact, this wasn't much different from Lin Yi doing it himself, it was just a little more dangerous. But Lin Yi wanted Xiao to experience the speed of a racer, and that was why he did this. Chapter 1068. Chapter 1066. A plot against Xiao. Don't move! Xiao in his arms gave Lin Yi a physiological reaction, and Lin Yi frowned, a bitter smile on his face. Oh? Xiao blinked, and felt something hard pressing against her, but she immediately understood why Lin Yi didn't let her move. Xiao's cheeks reddened, but she was happy inside. Xiao and Lin Yi had become a couple, but it was more or less forcing Lin Yi to do it. If it weren't for Tang Yun's generosity and fulfilling that bet, Xiao wouldn't be in a relationship with Lin Yi right now. As a result, Xiao was always worried that Lin Yi didn't like her, but now it seemed like that worry was unnecessary. Lin Yi was quite interested in her. Why don't we try it in the car? Xiao suddenly said something very bold. What are you talking about? Do you want to die? Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Xiao's words. This Feng Xiao's idea was shocking enough. Even if Lin Yi was strong, he wouldn't dare do something like that. Wasn't that obviously courting death? Hee. I saw people do it when they were racing before, Xiao said, a little embarrassed. And then? Lin Yi asked. And then they all died, Xiao said awkwardly. You still want to try it after dying? Lin Yi glared at Xiao. I was thinking that you're stronger, aren't you a mystic? I heard you have chi protecting your body. Xiao Xiao stuck her tongue out. Who would have the energy to care about chi then? Linny shook his head. Focus on racing. If you're going to race, enjoy the excitement and speed it brings. Don't think about anything else. All right. Xiao Xiao thought about it and agreed that it was better to do that at home. She could enjoy the fun of racing here. Wasn't this her dream? After Xiao Xiao's tantrum, the fire in Lin Yi's heart calmed down. He started the car, his left hand on Xiao Xiao's hand on the steering wheel, and his right hand wrapped around her body. I'll tell you to steer the rudder later, just listen to me. Okay. Xiao Xiao nodded. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The sound of the countdown came from the speakers. At the same time the number 1 was shouted. The referee also waved the small flag in his hand. The Audi TT and the Land Rover shot forward at the same time like a sharp sword. However, the Audi TT was clearly lagging behind the Land Rover on the straight road before the winding mountain road. After a few hundred meters, the gap between the two cars slowly widened. The Land Rover was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, it had surpassed the Audi TT by a lot. What's so great about having a good car? Xiao Xiao gritted her teeth as she gripped the steering wheel, but there was nothing she could do. What could she do? Her car wasn't as good as his. Ha! Linny hugged Xiao Xiao's right hand and patted her, telling her to calm down, but because of her agitation, Linny accidentally patted Xiao Xiao's chest. Linny felt a little awkward. It really wasn't on purpose. But Xiao Xiao didn't seem to mind at all. She kept yelling, Drive, drive! Speed up, speed up! Linny smiled, not minding it at all. Don't worry, his car's bigger. His disadvantage will show when we get on the mountain road. The mountain road wasn't easy to drive on, and the Land Rover had a slight advantage. On roads like this, an off-road car was way better than a sports car. But at the same time, the road was bumpy, and there were sharp turns everywhere. The advantage of a small car was fully displayed here. The Land Rover had a big engine, but not stepping on the brakes on roads like this was suicide. And so, Linny wasn't worried about the Land Rover taking the lead. The Land Rover was in the lead, but it wasn't easy. The Baldy drove as he looked at the Audi TT behind him. He didn't want to put too much distance between him and Linny, so he didn't push the car to the max otherwise. He could have pushed the car to 300 in the 2-kilometer buffer. Ring, 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 a cell phone rang, and the bald-headed sunglasses man picked up the phone. Hello? The bald-headed man in sunglasses answered the call while driving. His expression was extremely calm. It could be seen that he didn't seem to care about this kind of competition. Third brother, why do I see a man in that phone girl's car? What's his job? A man's voice came from the phone. Second brother, that man seems to be the bodyguard Feng Tianlong hired for that phone girl. The Baldy said after a sigh. He seems to have some skills. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that he's phone girl's boyfriend. They seem to be pretty close. Oh, then let's get rid of them together. Third brother, are you confident? The man called second brother said after a sigh. Don't forget where I came from. I'm a retired F1 racer. The Baldy said faintly. I'm planning on getting rid of them as well. He's to blame for being with Feng Tianlong's daughter. I believe in your driving skills. I've already prepared a helicopter. It's on standby at the mountaintop. Once you get them, I'll send the helicopter to pick you up. The second brother said. All right, we're on the curve. Let's not talk about this for now. I need to find a chance to get rid of them. The Baldy said. But now, I need to wait for these two short-lived bastards. If I knew they'd be using a small car like this, I'd change cars. The Baldy had seen Xiao Xiao's profile and knew that she usually drove an Audi TT, but he thought that she'd be driving a better car for a race, right? But the Baldy was wrong. Xiao Xiao was still in her own Audi TT. Just as Linny said, the Rover slowed down noticeably after getting on the mountain road. Speeding up on a road like this was basically suicide, of course, except for masters. Of course, Linny was a master in this area, But Lin Yi suspected that the Baldy was a master as well. If he wasn't, then that perfect drift before the race wasn't something a normal person could pull off. The distance and speed were perfectly controlled. Any more and he'd crash into Xiu Xiao's car, and any less and the front of the car wouldn't be able to turn properly. Chapter 1069. Lin Yi's suspicions. Lin Yi kicking the car was also Lin Yi's way of testing the Baldy. According to what Xiao Xiao and the young man said, the first race was usually prepared for newbies. But this Baldy was clearly not a newbie, he was a veteran. His silence, on the other hand, made Lin Yi even more suspicious. Most people would show some dissatisfaction after getting their car kicked, it was just a matter of how forceful they were. But the Baldy didn't even say a word, a complete change from his gangster image. "He's slowing down! He's slowing down! He's slowing down!" Xiao Xiao cried out in surprise. "Ha!" Lin Yi only smiled faintly as his suspicions deepened. Yet another anomaly. With the Baldy's driving skills, he shouldn't be slowing down here. This was only the first lap of the mountain road, and it wasn't steep at all. Even a normal driver wouldn't have a problem with it, let alone a drifting master like the Baldy. But he just had to slow down at this moment. This was an obvious act, and only Lin Yi would suspect it. Xiao Xiao was in a state of excitement, and it was hard for her to notice something like this. But what Lin Yi didn't understand was what this Baldy was trying to do. Was he trying to scam 200,000 out of Xiao Xiao? Or did he have some other goal? Lin Yi wouldn't believe it if he had some other goal. Bringing Xiao Xiao to this race was purely a coincidence, unless this person had been observing Xiao Xiao and him the entire time, waiting for a chance to make a move. It was just that many things that seemed like random happenings had been carefully planned out by the enemy, and Lin Yi was always on his guard. It didn't matter if the Baldy had any ulterior motives or not, Lin Yi was already on guard against him. "Slow down, do what you want." A smile appeared on Lin Yi's face as he stepped on the gas. The Audi TT's engine roared, and Lin Yi and Xiu Xiao's car shot forward. They were about to reach the winding mountain road, but not only did Lin Yi not slow down, he even sped up. The group of spectators who were watching the match through binoculars all let out exclamations. Although there was no need to slow down when going up the winding road, he had never seen anyone speed up at this time. Wasn't he courting death? Xiao Xiao understood that as well. She used to watch other people race, but she'd run this path before when she was training. It was just that it wasn't like this, where they were chasing each other. She wasn't as nervous as she was now. But Xiao Xiao knew that they couldn't speed up when they were going up the winding roads. Everyone else was speeding up on the straight road, but Lin Yi was speeding up on the winding road? What the hell was going on? "Lin Yi, honey, why did you speed up?" Xiao Xiao said, startled. "How can I overtake him if I don't speed up?" Lin Yi said faintly, not thinking that speeding up was something special at all. Lin Yi's car sped up a few more times, instantly overtaking the Land Rover in front of them. Lin Yi was still speeding up after going up the winding road. There was a sharp curve in front of them, but Lin Yi was still speeding up. "Ah!" Xiao Xiao screamed, but it wasn't a scream of fear, it was a scream of excitement. This was the first time she was speeding up at a sharp curve. It was extremely dangerous, but she trusted in Lin Yi. It was a blind trust. Of course, what Xiao Xiao was thinking was that even if she died, she'd die with Lin Yi. She'd have no regrets in this life. If they could still be lovers in the netherworld, she'd be so happy. "Mother ****, he's a lunatic." The bald-headed sunglasses man looked at the accelerating Audi TT and was shocked. This person was either a top-notch expert or a lunatic. Who drove like that? Speeding up at a sharp curve? He didn't know how to spell death, did he? But what happened next proved the Baldy's guess Lin Yi was a master. The Audi TT didn't slow down at the sharp curve, instead going through the curve in one smooth motion. It wasn't any weaker than the Baldy's trick before the race. The Baldy's face froze. He didn't think that the person Xiao Xiao brought would be a master at racing. This was a little out of his expectations. Before, with the Baldy's strength, Xiao Xiao was nothing more than a weak prey in his eyes. Her life and death were in his hands. But now, things had exceeded his imaginations. Prey was no longer prey, and what was supposed to be a game of cat and mouse had turned into a dangerous fight. The Baldy's lips curled into a cold smirk. No matter how good your skills were, since you were driving an Audi TT, that meant you were going to lose. The Audi TT in front of the huge Land Rover was a little out of proportion. As long as the Baldy put on a fighting stance, the one who would suffer in the end would be Lin Yi's side. Seeing that the Audi TT was still accelerating, the Baldy accelerated as well. He had underestimated his opponent. He wanted to wait for his opponent, but now he was being overtaken. The Baldy in sunglasses also began to accelerate. At the same time, he didn't slow down at the sharp curve in the mountain, but continued to accelerate. The actions of the bald man in sunglasses shocked the men and women watching the match once again. They cheered and shouted. The first race that wasn't that eye-catching was now the most exciting fight. The audience kept calling their friends who weren't there, complaining that they didn't get to see the most exciting scene. Drifting, still drifting. The Baldy in sunglasses was also accelerating and drifting. This caused the distance between the two cars to shrink. Lin Yi frowned. It seemed that he had underestimated his opponent. Lin Yi wasn't a professional racer, but Lin Yi had undergone rigorous training. If he were to participate in a world-class race, he'd definitely be able to get a place. This kind of strength was enough to stand proudly in the underground racetracks. But the Baldy seemed to be an exception. It didn't take long for Lin Yi to realize that the Baldy's strength was on par with his. Only professional racers or assassins who had undergone rigorous training like him could have this kind of racing skill. A faint look of worry flashed across Lin Yi's eyes. If Xiao Xiao wasn't in the car, then Lin Yi could totally fight to the death with him, but now, it was impossible to win with just pure strength. Chapter 1070. Death Trap. Lin Yi sighed softly as the Land Rover got closer and closer. It seemed like he had to give up on this race. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. But even if Lin Yi wanted to give up, the Land Rover wouldn't let Lin Yi go. It was still accelerating, like a wild horse that had broken free from its reins, charging towards Lin Yi's back. Lin Yi, honey, he's catching up. What do we do? What do we do? Xiao Xiao jumped in fright at the sight of the Land Rover. Lin Yi frowned as he grabbed Xu Xiao's hand and turned the steering wheel, pulling the Audi TT to the side of the mountain, opening up a path for the rover. With the Land Rover's current speed, if Lin Yi didn't dodge, he'd be hit by the car for sure. He'd even crash into the mountain stream. This guy was driving with no regard for his life. Or perhaps, he was planning on doing this. What's wrong? Xiao Xiao paused when she saw Lin Yi pull over, not understanding what Lin Yi meant. There's something wrong with the car behind us. I don't know if it's my enemy. Lin Yi's tone was calm even in the face of danger. Of course, Lin Yi thought that the Baldy's enemy was him, not Xiao Xiao. As far as he was concerned, he was the one dragging Xiao Xiao into this. After all the enemies in Songshan were coming for Lin Yi. Ah? Xiao Xiao paused and subconsciously gasped. She looked back just in time to see the Land Rover ramming into her car. Lin Yi naturally saw this from the rearview mirror as well. He floored the gas pedal, and the Audi TT shot forward once more. But even so, the back of the car was still rammed by the Land Rover. With a loud bang, Lin Yi knew that the back of the Audi TT was heavily damaged. It seemed like he was right. The Baldy's real goal wasn't to race, but to kill him. Turn around and hold me tight. Don't let go, Lin Yi hurriedly ordered. Oh. Okay. For some reason, Xiao Xiao didn't feel any fear at all. There were bad guys chasing them, but she wasn't scared at all. It was like she was in a horror movie, and with Lin Yi here, she felt more at ease. This was going to be a very rare experience in her life, going through a life and death situation with the person she loved. This was something that many couples dreamed of. And so, Xiao Xiao was a little thankful for the Baldy's help. Of course, that was if they made it through this dangerous situation. Xiao Xiao passed the steering wheel to Lin Yi and turned her body, turning from leaning on Lin Yi's chest to hugging him. Xiao Xiao's body was petite to begin with, so the space was limited, but it wasn't hard for her. The softness of her chest squeezed into Lin Yi's embrace, and it made Lin Yi's blood boil. Especially with Xiao Xiao riding on him, it was very similar to a legendary sport, and it made Lin Yi feel even more excited. Xiao Xiao was the same. If she could, she really wanted to do this. In her heart, since she had already decided on Lin Yi, it didn't matter if Lin Yi was good or bad. Her body's condition didn't allow her to hesitate and look left and right. Once she made up her mind, she had to do it right away. Otherwise, she might die before she could even enjoy the feeling of sex. Wouldn't that be a huge loss? Xiao Xiao had this mentality towards Lin Yi, and so she didn't care about being shy or anything. Once she made up her mind, she had to do it right away. Bang! The rover rammed into them again. Lin Yi frowned. He couldn't do what he normally did in a situation like this. He couldn't drift when going through a curve either. What if he was drifting and the rover rammed into him? That would be a disaster. So Lin Yi could only use normal measures when going through a curve, slowing down and turning. Even so, he almost lost control from the rover. Ah! Xiao Xiao shrieked, panicking. Lin Yi, honey, what do we do? Although Lin Yi was driving, he was also thinking of a way to deal with the situation. If it weren't for Xiao Xiao, Lin Yi could just stop the car and cause trouble for the rover. Mystic class masters weren't invulnerable to weapons, but a car like this was something they could handle with pure energy protecting their body. Lin Yi was confident that he could kick the Land Rover into the bottom of the ravine. But with Xiao Xiao here, Lin Yi couldn't just leave her in the car. It was too dangerous. If he jumped out with Xiao Xiao, then Lin Yi would have to channel his chi to Xiao Xiao first. As for attacking the rover, that was impossible. Lin Yi was still thinking when the Land Rover rammed into him again with a bang. The enemy was obviously coming for him, and even if Lin Yi dodged, it wouldn't help. He might even have to hide in the ravine. Ah, my car! Xiao Xiao looked at the spiderweb-like damage on the windshield, feeling heartache. Her beloved car was ruined by this bastard. It was another sharp turn, but this one was even sharper than the one before. Lin Yi's heart sank as he looked at the Land Rover chasing after him. If he wasn't mistaken, his car was going to be rammed into by the Land Rover at this turn. Hold me and don't move! Lin Yi started channeling the art of dragon mastery. If Xiao Xiao got hurt in a situation like this, the consequences would be unimaginable, and so Lin Yi had to make sure that Xiao Xiao could absorb his chi in time to heal her. Lin Yi, on the other hand, made a bold decision. Xiao Xiao seemed to have realized the urgency of the situation as she hugged Lin Yi tightly like a sloth, almost sticking her body onto Lin Yi's. But Lin Yi, naturally, wasn't in the mood to enjoy the feeling of Xiao Xiao's soft body. After the turn, he slammed on the brakes, using the mountain wall to stop the car. The bald man had been waiting for this chance. Without a doubt, the turn in front was the best place to solve the problem. Seeing Lin Yi stop the car, a mocking smile appeared on the bald man's face. In a situation like this, stopping the car or not was a death sentence. Did he think that the weight of his car could withstand the impact? Chapter 1071. A heavy promise. But just as the rover was about to crash into the Audi, Lin Yi let go of the brakes, and the Audi slid forward once more. This created an illusion for the Land Rover driver. The Baldy thought that Lin Yi's car hadn't moved at all, since the Audi's taillights had all been smashed by the Land Rover. In actuality, Lin Yi's car was sliding forward slowly towards the bottom of the mountain. It was just that it was too slow, and the Baldy didn't notice it at all. All of this happened in the blink of an eye, and Lin Yi had only made a mistake. And so, when the rover crashed into the Audi was almost going down the mountain. Lin Yi stepped on the gas, and the Audi shot forward, going down the mountain. The rover didn't seem to realize the danger, and he was still stepping on the gas, trying to ram Lin Yi's car down. In the end, the Audi TT flew down. By the time the Baldy realized that something was wrong, the two front wheels had already gone down the mountain road. It was too late for him to react, so his car also flew down the mountain road. Ah! Xiao Xiao screamed as the Audi fell down the mountain. After a couple of rolls, the airbags popped out, but if it weren't for Lin Yi's pure chi protecting Xiao Xiao, the two would have been dead for sure. The car was completely out of shape from all the rolling, and any safety measures wouldn't work anymore. The car was on fire, too, and if they didn't jump out of the car soon, it'd be even more dangerous. Lin Yi ignored Xiao Xiao's screams and broke the airbag, kicking the door open, and jumped out with Xiao Xiao in his arms. Phew! Lin Yi patted Xiao Xiao's back, relieved. All right, Xiao Xiao, it's fine now. Ah! Xiao Xiao opened her eyes. She thought that she was going to die, and so she wasn't too clear-headed. Linny, honey, are we dead? Not dead. Linny smiled. I won't let you die. Really? Xiao Xiao paused before remembering her body. She felt a little sad. Linny seemed to have noticed Xiao Xiao's sadness as well. He sighed softly and nodded. It's true. This was a heavy promise, and Linny felt like he was bragging, but Linny really didn't want Feng Xiao Xiao to die. Unknowingly, he had fallen in love with this weird girl. If it was possible, Linny wanted to spend the rest of his life with her, but it was just a beautiful illusion. Pinky promise! Xiao Xiao extended her hand, as if trying to prove something. Lin Yi's heart grew heavier at Xiao Xiao's stubbornness. It seemed that Xiao Xiao was lying to herself, trying to use this method to fight against the unfairness of fate. Okay. Lin Yi extended his pinky, and Xiao Xiao, on the other hand, seemed a little happy. She only came back to her senses after a while. We didn't die. That was too exciting. Linny, honey, you were amazing. That feeling was like bungee jumping, like it was a moment of life and death. Your car. Linny pointed at the Audi TT that was on fire. Right, where did that Land Rover guy go? How despicable! How dare he crash my car like that? I'm going to dig his eyeballs out and stomp on them. Linny, honey, come help me. Xiao Xiao was enraged at the sight of her car turning into a ball of fire. This was a car she'd spent years of pocket money on, and now it was destroyed just like that. Lin Yi sighed softly as he looked at the fallen Land Rover. The Baldy was lucky. The Land Rover had gone off the mountain path, but because of the Audi TT blocking it, it only landed on the mountain path, not out of the stream. Over there, I'll take you to him to pay for the car. Lin Yi pointed at a deformed Land Rover on the mountain path. The Baldy was in a difficult situation, so naturally he didn't see Lin Yi jump out with Xiao Xiao. When he stopped on the next level, the Baldy couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ha ha ha, the heavens really haven't forsaken me yet. That bastard's pretty cunning, trying to play mind games. You want to die with me? It won't be that easy. The Baldy got off the car and looked down at the exploded Audi TT. He was in a great mood. He took out his phone and quickly sent a video to a number. It was the video of the Audi TT being pushed down the stream, and the video of the Audi TT exploding. Not long after the text message was sent, an urgent phone call rang. As expected, the person who received the video called back immediately. Hello? The Baldy smiled coldly as he picked up the phone. Long phone? I'm sure you've received the video I sent you? Who are you? How's Xiao Xiao? Tianlong asked urgently. Long Feng was Tianlong's code name in the organization, and it seemed like the person knew him well enough. He waved his hand at his underling as he made the call, signaling him to check the location of the call. With the widespread use of a GPS, they could accurately pinpoint the location of the call through the connection between the phone number and the base station. After receiving the video, Tianlong called Xiao Xiao, but her phone was turned off. He called Lin Yi's number, but it was still turned off. In order to ensure that they wouldn't be disturbed during the competition, both of them turned off their phones temporarily. They didn't expect Tianlong to call at this time. In the video, his daughter's car was pushed down the stream and burned to ashes. Tianlong's heart tightened. Although his daughter didn't have much time left, he would do anything to let her live one more day. Tianlong's first reaction was that it was his enemy who did this. After all, to be able to send this video to Tianlong's phone, The identity of the person who sent the video must not be that simple. Who am I? Feng Tianlong, don't you know? Ha 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 ha, my big brother died in your hands, and this time, I'll let you have a taste of losing a family member, ha ha. The Baldy laughed cruelly. How is it? The video is clear, right? One bang, and your daughter is dead. This feels great. If you come over now, you might still be able to see some ashes, but after a while, even the ashes will be gone. Chapter 1072. Weren't you dead? Long Feng, it looks like you're not stupid. Let me tell you, this is just a warning. If you and your organization continue to oppose us, Red Conches, then don't blame us for retaliating even more severely. The bald man sneered as he warned. You're the second head in charge of Red Conches, right? Tianlong's heart hurt, but his will wasn't something a normal person could compare to. So, while he was stalling for time with the Baldy, he gestured for his men to go capture them. Li Feng had worked for Tianlong for many years and naturally understood what he meant. After he found the location of the Baldy, he used his computer to send out orders to gather his men. I say, Feng Tianlong, you're trying to stall for time, right? So that you can catch me? The Baldy wasn't stupid. He knew Tianlong's tricks like the back of his hand. Now that his daughter was dead, Tianlong could still talk to him calmly. Clearly, there was something wrong. Humph! Feng Tianlong was seen through by the Baldy and sneered. Second head in charge, listen carefully. If I don't uproot your organization, my name isn't Feng Tianlong. I'll fight you for the rest of my life. With his daughter dead, Tianlong had nothing to worry about. He had made up his mind to fight Red Conches for the rest of his life. He wouldn't stop until he caught them all. Ha ha, then you can continue dreaming. I'm calling you with a normal phone, so naturally, I have a backup plan. The Baldy laughed. Did you hear that? It's the sound of a helicopter. I'm leaving, I've wasted my time. You dash. Tianlong's expression froze. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. That's right, who was the second head in charge of Red Conches? He was the second head in charge of an international criminal organization. How could he not have a backup plan? The helicopter lowered the ladder. The Baldy sneered at the other side of the phone. Feng Tianlong, why don't you fly over? Do you really want to hit a helicopter right now? Ha ha ha, but you can't do it, la la la. The Baldy wanted to anger Feng Tianlong to death. His big brother, the leader of Red Conches, died in Feng Tianlong's hands. This was why he, the second in command of an organization, had to deal with Xiao Xiao himself. If he didn't kill Tianlong's family with his own hands, he wouldn't be satisfied. The hatred of killing my brother is absolutely irreconcilable. Humph! Although Tianlong was angry, he could only smile coldly. However, the next moment, something that shocked the Baldy in sunglasses happened. Just as he was about to say a few more irritating words, he suddenly heard a loud noise. The helicopter that was originally hovering in the sky was like a kite with a broken string. With a whoosh, it fell into the ravine. Then, there was another loud bang. The helicopter fell into the mountain stream and exploded. Ha! The bald man in sunglasses suddenly widened his eyes and pointed in the direction where the plane had fallen, speechless. Linny had brought Xiao Xiao to where the Baldy was a while ago, but Linny didn't walk up rashly. He wanted to listen to what the Baldy was calling, so that he could figure out his intentions and background. But what Linny didn't expect was that the Baldy was calling Feng Tianlong. In other words, the target this time was Xiao Xiao, not Linny. At the thought, Linny felt lucky. If he wasn't racing with Xiao Xiao, who knew what kind of trouble would have happened? Luckily, Xiao Xiao was with him now, completely fine. But after the Baldy said a few words, a helicopter flew over from afar, evidently trying to pick him up. And so, Linny picked up a guardrail from the side of the mountain and threw it at the helicopter's propeller. Of course, if a normal person threw it, they wouldn't be able to break the propeller even if they hit it. After all, the guardrail was nothing compared to the propeller. But Linny added some compressed chi to the guardrail, and so the helicopter's propeller was destroyed by Lin Yi's energy bomb. Fuck! Linny honey, you really are a master at hitting planes. Xiu Xiao's eyes were wide open as she looked at Lin Yi with admiration. Linny honey, can you teach me how to hit planes? Lin Yi sweated at Xiao Xiao's words. Wasn't her suggestion a little too evil? Xiao Xiao looked at the weird expression on Lin Yi's face and paused, but she quickly understood why Lin Yi was like this. Lin Yi clearly misunderstood her words. I'm talking about hitting planes, not that one. I know how to do that, you don't need to teach me. Xiao Xiao quickly explained. You know how to do it? Lin Yi's eyes were wide open. Had Xiao Xiao tried it before? There's a video online, so I watched it for a while. I'm going to test it on my boyfriend in the future. Xiao Xiao was always more daring when she was with Lin Yi. You want to try? Alright, I'll test it when I get the chance. Right now, I need to get that baldy to pay for the car. Lin Yi almost couldn't resist the temptation. But in a place like this, wasn't being tempted the same as asking for death? What do you mean? Feng Tianlong heard the baldy's quack sound and asked, confused. But right now, the baldy wasn't in the mood to care about Tianlong's phone call anymore. He started yelling. Who hit my plane? The next moment, Lin Yi and Xiao Xiao jumped up and stood in front of the baldy. Are you looking for me? Lin Yi asked with a smile as he looked at the baldy's exasperated face. You! The baldy was worried the plane was gone, so how was he going to run? If he drove, he'd probably run into Tianlong's men the moment he got off the mountain. He didn't know what to do, but two people suddenly appeared in front of him, scaring him. But when the baldy saw the two people in front of him, it was as if he'd seen a ghost. He pointed at Lin Yi and Xiao Xiao, shocked. You guys! Aren't you guys dead? You're the one who's dead! Your whole family's dead! Xiao Xiao was a bit sensitive to the word dead, so she retorted as soon as the baldy opened his mouth. Chapter 1073. Chapter 1071, Hatred. You're the one who saved her? The baldy glanced at Lin Yi. As the second in command of an international criminal organization, naturally, he had a few practitioners under his command. He wasn't a practitioner himself, but the third in command of the organization, his third brother, was a practitioner. Thinking back to how Lin Yi kicked the car and how the helicopter was shot down, the baldy was almost certain that Lin Yi was a practitioner as well. The baldy regretted underestimating Lin Yi. He didn't think that Xiao Xiao would have a practitioner bodyguard by her side. Was it Tianlong who sent him to protect her? Pay for the car, and you won't die. Lin Yi didn't bother answering the baldy's question. Ah? The baldy paused. He didn't think that Lin Yi's first condition would be for him to pay for the car. Ah, what? You broke the car, hurry up and pay for it, Lin Yi said faintly. The baldy in sunglasses was holding his breath. From his perspective, Xiao Xiao was already a dead person, but now, not only was she not dead, but she was also asking him to pay for the car. Hello? Hello? Tianlong, on the other side of the phone, could tell that things had turned for the better. It seemed like Lin Yi's voice came from the other side, and it seemed like his daughter wasn't dead. From what the baldy said, it seemed like Lin Yi had saved her. So, Feng Tianlong panicked. He kept calling, wanting to ask about the latest situation on the other side. What are you yelling for? Are you calling your mom? The baldy was furious. Tianlong was still on the other side of the phone. Hey! Stop bullshitting. Are you going to pay for the car or not? You wrecked my wife's car. Say something if you don't want to die. Lin Yi frowned. If it weren't for his suspicious background, Lin Yi would have kicked him to the bottom of the mountain a long time ago. Xiao Xiao heard Lin Yi say my wife's car, and she was overjoyed. Lin Yi had never called her that intimately before. She didn't think that Lin Yi would actually say the truth in a situation like this. Xiao Xiao's eyes narrowed into crescents. She didn't think that this baldy was that bad anymore. If it weren't for him, Lin Yi wouldn't call her wife, so she thought that this baldy was a good choice. If the Audi TT could talk, it'd probably be crying, scolding Xiao Xiao for being a pervert and abandoning her car after getting a man. She actually thought that the killer of her car was a good choice. Linny, honey, this Rover of his looks a little damaged, but it seems like there's nothing wrong with the inside. Why don't we drive it away? I'll find a place to fix it, and it'll look brand new. Xiao Xiao was drooling over the Baldy's Rover. And so, she decided to take it for herself. Oh, that works too. Linny thought about it, and it wasn't too realistic to ask the Baldy to pay for the car. He gave up on the idea. But Linny wasn't going to let this guy go if he didn't pay for the car. He snatched the phone from the Baldy and asked, "Uncle Phone? It's me, Linny, right?" Tianlong's voice was very happy. He had heard his daughter's voice from the other side of the phone, and it seemed like she was fine. Tianlong breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time, he was also secretly happy. It sounded like Linny and Xiao Xiao's relationship was pretty good. Linny called Xiao Xiao his wife, and Xiao Xiao called Linny her husband? Then he wouldn't be far from having a grandchild, right? Uncle Phone, this person seems to be coming for Xiao Xiao? You sent someone to take him away? Linny said. All right, my man Li Feng is already on his way. He's my driver, you've met him before, Tianlong said. Right, I shot down their helicopter just now. Get someone to clean it up. I think everyone on it died, Linny said. What? Tianlong's eyes widened when he heard Lin Yi's words. Linny shot down the helicopter? How did he do it? Lin Yi didn't have a gun with him, right? Even if he had a gun, could a normal gun shoot down a helicopter? What kind of joke was this? You! How did you do it? Tianlong was shocked. What did you use? The railing on the mountain road, Lin Yi said indifferently. This? Tianlong couldn't believe it, but he knew that Lin Yi wouldn't lie to him about this, so he could only believe Lin Yi's words. Now wasn't the time to doubt. He quickly said, Lin Yi, protect Xiao's safety, I'll be there soon. Okay. Lin Yi nodded. The Baldian shades hated Lin Yi even more now. The helicopter was shot down by Lin Yi? And he used the railing on the mountain road? Was he still human? Let me leave, or else the red conches won't let you go. The Baldian shades knew of Lin Yi's strength, and gave up on fighting Lin Yi head-on. He wanted to control Xiao Xiao and use her to threaten Lin Yi and Tianlong, but when he heard that Lin Yi shot down the helicopter with his bare hands, he gave up on that idea. That was the same as looking for death. In front of Lin Yi, he gave up on all his tricks and only used a threatening tone to negotiate with Lin Yi. Red conches? Lin Yi smiled in disdain. Although I don't know what it is, but don't mess with me, or else your whole family will be destroyed. The Baldy was fuming at Lin Yi's arrogance. The Red Conches was an international criminal organization, and they had a huge influence. Although you, Lin Yi, are practitioners, we have practitioners too. Frog in the well. But towards Lin Yi, the Baldy didn't have any temper. In his eyes, Lin Yi was like a tiger. Shooting down a helicopter with his bare hands wasn't something normal people would do. The Baldy admitted defeat and didn't put up any more resistance. He waited for Feng Tianlong's men to come and take him away. For him, being arrested was nothing. As the second in command of an international criminal organization, he had also been arrested by police all over the world. However, in the end, he successfully escaped. Even if he did not escape, the local police were forced to release him due to the terrorist activities of the Red Conches organization. So he was confident that he could regain his freedom after falling into Tianlong's hands. Chapter 1074. Chapter 1072. Do you know my dad? At the foot of the mountain, the spectators didn't know what was going on. While they were still shocked that the Land Rover dared to charge recklessly, and wanted to knock the Audi TT off the cliff, the two cars rushed out of the mountain road together. Just when they thought that the man and woman in the Audi TT would never come back, Lin Yi miraculously jumped out of the car and safely brought Xiao Xiao out of danger. When they saw a helicopter appear in the sky in disbelief, the next moment, the helicopter inexplicably fell into the mountain stream and exploded. No one at the foot of the mountain saw that it was Lin Yi who shot the helicopter down. After all, it was too far away, and Lin Yi's movements were too fast. What was going on? Was this a foreign action movie? Everything in front of them was something they could only see on TV, but now it was happening right in front of their eyes. It was too exciting, too exciting. The people who brought the cameras to record the scene were very excited. They wanted to go back and post the scene online. But their idea was good, but there was no way to realize it. Li Feng led the members of the criminal police squad and conducted a search of the open space at the foot of the mountain. All of the audience present were temporarily restrained and were being inspected by the police. All the cameras, camcorders, and phones were checked one by one, and those with videos and photos were deleted by professional technicians. Feng Tianlong rushed to the scene as well, and he and Li Feng drove up the mountain road and stopped beside the Land Rover. Li Feng's car hadn't stopped yet, and Feng Tianlong quickly ran out of the car. He looked at his daughter and let out a breath of relief. "Xiao Xiao, are you okay?" "Of course I'm okay." Xiao Xiao happily hugged Lin Yi's arm. "With Lin Yi honey protecting me, I'm fine even though the car exploded." "Lin Yi, thank you." Feng Tianlong took a deep breath and said sincerely to Lin Yi. What happened today really scared Feng Tianlong. He thought that he would never see his daughter again, but Lin Yi didn't let him down and protected his daughter safely. Tianlong once again felt that his decision back then was a wise one. Only Lin Yi was qualified to be her daughter's boyfriend, to be able to protect her. "Second leader, come with us." Although Feng Tianlong wanted to tear the baldy into pieces, his identity didn't allow him to do so. What awaited the baldy was only the punishment of the law. Li Feng was also an internal martial arts master, but he only had the strength of a yellow-steppe martial artist. Still, he was able to deal with this baldy in sunglasses. After he went up, he restrained the bald man in sunglasses and dragged him into the car. "Uncle Feng, if there's nothing else, Xiao Xiao and I will leave first." Lin Yi didn't want to get too involved in Feng Tianlong's business. Since he was living a normal life, Lin Yi naturally wanted to draw a line with his previous life. "Okay, this time, I, Feng Tianlong, owe you a huge favor." Feng Tianlong nodded and said solemnly. "Ha, Uncle Feng, you're too kind. Xiao Xiao is my girlfriend, of course, I won't let her get hurt." Lin Yi smiled and shook his head. "Oh?" Feng Tianlong paused, and then a flash of joy appeared in his eyes. He could see that Lin Yi really did like Xiao Xiao, and he wasn't pretending to be her boyfriend anymore. This made Feng Tianlong very happy. He had to make Lin Yi pretend to be Xiao Xiao's boyfriend to trick her. After all, his daughter didn't have much time left, and Feng Tianlong couldn't force Lin Yi to fall in love with Xiao Xiao no matter what. But if Lin Yi could fall in love with Xiao Xiao, it would be the best. Feng Tianlong was afraid that Xiao Xiao would see through his act. That way, Lin Yi would fall in love with Xiao Xiao, and the relationship between the two would grow by leaps and bounds. With that thought, Feng Tianlong nodded, satisfied. "All right, Lin Yi, bring Xiao Xiao back. I'll treat you to a meal some other day, and then we'll talk. But I'm a bit busy these days, so I don't have time." "It's fine, Uncle Feng, you go do what you need to do." Lin Yi nodded. Feng Tianlong got in the car, and Li Feng drove away. Lin Yi and Xiao Xiao got in the Land Rover and followed Li Feng's car. "Lin Yi honey, you know my dad?" Xiao Xiao wasn't stupid. She could tell that something was wrong. Last time, her father said that he wanted to see Lin Yi, but Lin Yi said that the two hadn't met yet. Today, it seemed like Lin Yi and her father were very close. Xiao Xiao couldn't help but feel strange. "Actually, Uncle Feng and I have known each other for a long time." Lin Yi didn't hide it from Xiao Xiao. "Oh? You've known each other for a long time?" Xiao Xiao paused and looked at Lin Yi strangely. "Really? Your dad and I used to be comrades. I helped them with missions." Lin Yi smiled. "So that's why I was so surprised when you said that Uncle Feng was looking for me." "Oh? If that's the case, then why were you so nervous?" Xiao Xiao was puzzled. If Lin Yi knew her father, then what she'd said to scare him shouldn't have worked. It's because we know each other that I'm even more nervous. Your father and I are comrades, but I'm his daughter's boyfriend. What kind of weird seniority is this? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Ha ha! Xiao Xiao heard Lin Yi's words and started laughing. So this was what Lin Yi was worried about. But after laughing, Xiao Xiao asked curiously, "Then why didn't you tell me before? Before our relationship wasn't confirmed yet. Why would I tell you so much?" Lin Yi said matter-of-factly. But Lin Yi's words made Xiao Xiao very happy. Lin Yi's meaning was clear. The two of them were even closer now. That was why Lin Yi said it. "Then my dad didn't look for you." Xiao Xiao was worried that her father would tell Lin Yi about her illness. "What did you guys talk about?" "I called him a couple of times." "Nothing much. He's been really busy lately." "I think he's in charge of some case?" Lin Yi said casually. "Oh." Xiao Xiao nodded, relieved. "I didn't think that you and Dad were comrades. No wonder you're so strong." Chapter 1075. Chapter 1073, Regret. Not at all, I had a lot of fun. This was the most meaningful race I've ever raced in my life. It allowed me and the person I love the most to experience life and death together. It's very rare. Xiao Xiao said solemnly, shaking her head. This is the most precious memory of my life. I won't have any regrets when I think about it on the day I die. Ha! Lin Yi knew that Xiao Xiao was telling the truth, but he didn't know what to say. If there's a chance in the future, let's race again, but not in the near future. Yeah, we were in the limelight today, a lot of people know about us. Xiao Xiao was smart, and understood the reason as soon as Lin Yi said it. The Land Rover realized that the price difference between the Audi TT and the Rover wasn't that big, just double the price. It'd be a bit of a waste of gas in the city. So no matter how he thought about it, Lin Yi didn't think it was a good deal. Of course, it didn't matter as long as Xiao Xiao was happy. It was just that the license plate 2B941 was a bit awkward, and Lin Yi didn't want to drive it around the city. He could get Song Lingshan to change it. After getting off the mountain road, Lin Yi saw Lingshan's silhouette, but Lin Yi didn't greet her and just drove away. Lin Yi didn't want to show his face here just yet. "It's getting late, let's go home?" Lin Yi asked as he drove. "Yeah." Xiao Xiao nodded. Everything that happened today was thrilling and exciting, but Xiao Xiao's body and mind were really tired. She wanted to rest early. Lin Yi drove the Land Rover to the 4S shop first before taking a taxi to Xiao Xiao's district. Lin Yi, on the other hand, drove the Beetle out of the district. On the way, Lin Yi called Tang Yun. "Yun Yun, where are you?" Lin Yi asked. "I'm back at the hospital." "Did you and Xiao Xiao finish the race?" Tang Yun asked. "Yes, it's done. I've already sent Xiao Xiao home." Lin Yi didn't want Tang Yun to worry, so he didn't talk about what happened before. Instead, he asked, "How did you get back?" "Mingyao's looking for me, we're leaving together," Tang Yun said. Lin Yi felt that it was a little strange. It seemed that because of Xiao Xiao, the Miss and Yushu had formed an alliance with Tang Yun, making way for Xiao Xiao. After the call, Lin Yi drove straight back to the villa. As usual, Miss and Yushu were watching TV in the living room. When they saw Lin Yi, they only raised their heads to look at him and continued watching TV. In the past, whenever Lin Yi came back late, the Miss and Shu would express their dissatisfaction more or less, but now, because of Xiao Xiao, they both maintained a tolerant attitude. Lin Yi thought that the Miss and Shu actually had good hearts. They didn't have the arrogance and ruthlessness of rich girls at all. After going through a lot today, Lin Yi's face was covered in dirt. After returning to his room, Lin Yi quickly took a hot shower to calm himself down. Today's incident wasn't targeted at him, but Xiao Xiao. Lin Yi was a bit surprised, but the Baldy was clearly a normal person, too weak compared to Lin Yi. He didn't need to worry about this, so he'd leave it to Tianlong to worry about. Not long after, Lin Yi's phone rang. Lin Yi picked it up. It was Lingshan. "Hello?" Lin Yi picked up. "Lin Yi, today's incident was caused by you?" Lingshan went straight to the point. You're here to interrogate me? Lin Yi frowned. Of course not. Ling Shan heard the unfriendly tone in Lin Yi's voice, and her heart tightened. Lin Yi, don't be angry, the silly girl is just worried about you. Ling Shan's tone was a bit unhappy because Lin Yi was there, but he didn't show up. She felt that it was a bit regretful, as if Lin Yi was purposely avoiding her. She felt wronged and wanted to call him to ask. She'd only asked a single sentence, and Lin Yi was already unhappy. Ling Shan had no choice but to change her words. She was afraid that Lin Yi would miss her tomorrow if he was unhappy. Today's incident isn't suitable for me to show up, Lin Yi explained faintly. Ling Shan paused, understanding what Lin Yi meant. Lin Yi had always been a low-profile person, and after all the things he'd done, he'd given all the credit to her in the end. That was a clear indication of that. And are you all right? We can't interfere with today's incident, and we don't know what's going on. Ling Shan breathed out in relief after seeing that Lin Yi wasn't angry. It's nothing. Lin Yi shook his head. You're looking for me for this? Not really, I just wanted to ask if you could come find me tomorrow? Ling Shan asked. Find you? Lin Yi blinked. Yeah. Help me. Increase my strength. Ling Shan was both angry and embarrassed at the same time. How could he have forgotten about that? Seriously. Why was she so unimportant in his heart? It seemed like this silly girl needed to keep working hard. Oh, that. Lin Yi remembered that he'd promised Ling Shan that he'd go to her house this weekend and help her increase her strength. Lin Yi had been thinking about racing with Xiao Xiao these past couple of days, so he'd forgotten about it. He said apologetically, I'll go find you tomorrow. Should we go to the police station? My house, Ling Shan said after some hesitation. She felt that doing this kind of thing at home was safer. Doing it in the office always felt weird. Where's your house? Lin Yi didn't reject. How about this, come find me at the police station tomorrow morning. I'll stay in the office tonight, and I'll take you to my house, Ling Shan said after some thought. All right, Lin Yi agreed quickly. Xiao Xiao was a little conflicted, or rather, very conflicted. She realized that she really did fall in love with Lin Yi, and it was a very, very kind of love. This was supposed to be a good thing. She could experience what it was like to be in love before she died, so the deeper the better. And now, Lin Yi was starting to care about her more and more, and this was something that Xiao Xiao couldn't have wished for before. This was the only way that Lin Yi would be sadder the moment she died, and her revenge would be achieved. Chapter 1076. Become cute. But now, Xiao Xiao was stuck between a rock and a hard place, stuck between a rock and a hard place. What should she do? What should she do? Xiao Xiao didn't have any ideas. In the car today, she wanted to tell Lin Yi the truth, but she didn't dare. She'd fallen into the sweetness of love, and she was afraid that she'd lose everything she had if she told him the truth. Lin Yi would hate her to death, wouldn't he? Of course, Xiao Xiao thought. No one would feel good after being lied to, especially Lin Yi. He treated her so well, and that love would turn into hate. But if she didn't tell the truth, Xiao Xiao would feel guilty. She felt that hiding the truth was unfair to Lin Yi. Oh! Xiao Xiao put her hands in her hair and started walking around the room. So difficult, so difficult. Xiao Xiao finally understood what it meant to play with fire. Love wasn't something you could play around with. Xiao Xiao, since when did you become so irresolute? You disappoint me too much. Xiao Xiao mumbled to herself. But she was afraid that she'd lose everything if she told the truth. She didn't want to give up that feeling. After walking around the room for a while, Xiao Xiao herself felt dizzy. Her body wasn't good to begin with, so she fell onto the bed and fell asleep. The next morning, Lin Yi drove to find Ling Shan. Miss and Shu hadn't woken up yet. It was obvious that they had watched TV until midnight, so they were still sleeping. Lin Yi left a note after making breakfast and headed out. It was a weekend, and there weren't many cars on the road. Lin Yi arrived at the police station without any obstructions. Lin Yi suddenly thought of Huaijuan. It had been a while since he'd seen him, and he wondered if his internal injuries had healed. Back then, Linny hadn't discovered the use of his own energy yet, and had only used herbal medicine to repair Huaijuan's damaged meridians. It was the best solution for Huaijuan's current situation, but it wouldn't allow Huaijuan to practice spiritual arts again. The best outcome would be for Huaijuan to become a normal person, and Huaijuan, naturally, knew that as well. He'd started practicing physical arts again a long time ago. But now, Linny had the experience of healing himself, General Weiwu, and Faubert. He was confident that he could heal young Huaijuan, and this wasn't a difficult task for Linny. Linny hadn't thought about this before, and it wasn't until he reached the police station that he realized the crux of the matter. He wasn't in a rush to call Lingshan, but Huaijuan instead. Compared to Lingshan, Huaijuan's illness was more important to Linny. "Hello, Linny?" Huaijuan was obviously surprised to receive Lin Yi's call at this time. "Jun bro, where are you?" Linny asked. "I'm working on a case in the city, what's up?" Huaijuan asked quickly. From his perspective, there had to be a reason why Lin Yi would call him so early in the morning. "You're in the city." "Forget it then," Linny said. "I was at the police station, and I suddenly thought of a better and faster way to heal your internal injuries. If you're here, I'll go find you." "Oh? There's a better and faster way?" Huaijuan froze after hearing Lin Yi's words. Lin Yi's treatment had already far exceeded his expectations, and now Lin Yi was saying that there was a better way? How could Huaijuan not be overjoyed? "Yes, and this method can repair all the damaged meridians in your body, allowing you to practice spiritual kung fu again," Lin Yi said. "Repair damaged meridians and practice spiritual kung fu again?" Huaijuan's eyes widened. Lin Yi's words were beyond what Huaijuan could accept. How was that possible? Huaijuan had heard of repairing meridians before, and there was a noble house in the willing world that could do it. But not just anyone could come to them to repair meridians, and there were a lot of requirements. So when Lin Yi said that he could repair meridians, Huaijuan was shocked. His first reaction was, how was that even possible? "Yes, repair damaged meridians and practice spiritual kung fu again," Lin Yi repeated word by word. "Lin Yi, as far as I know, only House Sun's kung fu can heal people when they've reached the first level of perfection." Huaijuan hesitated. "Could it be that you've contacted someone from House Sun?" "House Sun again?" Lin Yi paused for a moment, and couldn't help but find it funny. It seemed that House Sun had a very high reputation in the willing world. These noble houses all knew about House Sun, and some of them even respected them. "I don't have that kind of reputation. House Sun's kung fu can only be used to heal one person every level. How could I possibly ask someone from House Sun for help?" Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "So what you're saying is..." Huaijuan understood what Yang Ming was implying. Lin Yi wasn't from a noble house, and he probably didn't have much contact with them. Even if he were to ask House Sun for help, they wouldn't be able to, let alone Lin Yi. "I'll heal you, of course." Lin Yi smiled. "What, Jun bro, you don't believe me?" "I do." "Why not?" Huaijuan thought that Lin Yi had misunderstood him, thinking that he didn't trust Lin Yi. He panicked. It wasn't that he doubted Lin Yi, it was just that this whole situation was beyond his imagination. Huaijuan said quickly. "Eagle, you saved my life on the battlefield, and you healed me a while back. You're the one who gave me my life. I wouldn't even frown if you were to use me for a biochemical experiment, ha!" Lin Yi couldn't help but smile at Huaijuan's words. "Then contact me when you get back." "All right, I'll contact you when I'm done here. The medicine you gave me last time was very effective, and the pain is slowly fading away." "I'm fine for now," Huaijuan said. Lin Yi nodded. With the medicine he gave Huaijuan's life, it wouldn't be a problem. Lin Yi didn't have to rush to treat Huaijuan's injuries. Lingshan woke up really early today, and she dressed herself up meticulously. Looking at her reflection in the mirror, she smiled sweetly at the cute girl that was completely different from Miss Violent, Miss Braindead, and Miss Dumb. So she had a feminine side to her. Chapter 1077. Chapter 1075, House Song's Crisis. House Song was actually in a very delicate situation with Lingshan's generation. From the looks of it, House Song was like the sun in the sky. Her second grandpa used to be a mystic late-phase peak, and after a few unsuccessful attempts at breaking through to Earth class, he left to travel the world in search of a breakthrough. And Lingshan, other than House Yu, was the strongest among the younger generation of all the noble houses. With this kind of strength, House Song must be very strong. But that wasn't the case. There was a gap in House Song's strength. Lingshan had a sister who was studying right now, and had already entered the golden class. Second uncle's family had a younger brother, but he was too young. He was only 10 years old and hadn't entered the ranks of the golden class yet. As a result, there was a gap in the strength of the Song family. This was very dangerous for a noble family. House Song had a very strong second grandpa, but after he left, there was no news of him for many years. Who knew if he was still alive or not? And the strongest person in House Song was Lingshan's grandmother, old Madame Song. She had the strength of a mystic mid-phase. But her body was clearly getting weaker and weaker every year. If she really passed, then House Song would be in a very awkward situation. Her grandfather was only a golden class late-phase peak, which wasn't very strong in a noble house. And her father was a bookworm, focusing on theoretical knowledge. Second uncle wasn't a bookworm, but he was a spoiled brat. Otherwise, he wouldn't have married so late. Her brother was 10 years older than her. House Song's hope could be said to be Lingshan, her sister, and her brother. As of now, Lingshan was the only one who had made some progress. Lingshan's sister and brother were still a little lacking, especially the brother. He was talented, but he was still too young. It was very likely that House Song would be removed from the list of noble houses before he could grow up. There were only two ways to break out of this predicament. One was marriage. Lingshan and her sister would be married off to other noble houses to expand House Song's position. But with House Song's current situation, marriage wasn't suitable, and Lingshan didn't like this kind of forced marriage at all. Therefore, they could only take another path, and that was to become stronger. Continuously become stronger, break through the golden class, and enter the mystic class. That was the only way to protect the Song family's position. Lingshan didn't want the marriage, so she had to keep getting stronger and stronger. In truth, Lingshan had been working hard all these years, but she hadn't made much progress. But who knew that when he was in the dungeon, he accidentally broke through the barrier of the peak of the late phase of the golden class and became a master of the late phase of the golden class. Lingshan was stunned, but at the same time, she understood something. Grandma was right. The Song family's kung fu was very suitable for women to practice. However, in order to achieve a breakthrough, she had to practice with a man. Lingshan didn't think much of it before, but now that she thought about it, it did make sense. Back then, she had fantasized about being like Lin Yi, and in the end, she had broken through the barrier that she had been stuck with all this time? If he really did it with Lin Yi, would he be able to level up to the peak late phase of the golden class? The temptation of leveling up was something that Lingshan couldn't resist. And the thought of giving up made Lingshan feel that having Lin Yi as her boyfriend wasn't a bad idea. Lin Yi was very strong, and his strength was unfathomable. All of these satisfied Lingshan's criteria for a partner. A few days ago, House Yu, Xiao family, and Zhao Qibing came to cause trouble for Lin Yi, but in the end, nothing happened. This kind of strength wasn't something a normal person could have. Putting aside the fact that Lin Yi had a girlfriend, Lingshan was still very infatuated with Lin Yi. This guy was domineering, but the more he was like this, the more Lingshan felt that Lin Yi was the hero in her heart. Girls who practice martial arts always worshipped heroes, even if this hero looked down on her a little. He always scolded her as Miss Brain Dead or Little Silly Girl, but Little Silly Girl was still better than Miss Brain Dead. Her hard work still bore fruit. Lingshan thought that since her chastity was gone, and Lin Yi had seen everything, she might as well take it one step further with Lin Yi. As long as it could increase her strength, it was a good thing. Lingshan didn't know what she was thinking. Was it because she liked Linny that she was broken, or was it because she was broken that she was forced to like Linny? Either way, this question was very complicated. It was like the chicken or the egg, giving her a headache. As a result, Ling Shan didn't think too much about it. Since Linny met her requirements, Ling Shan didn't think she'd lose out. After dressing up, Ling Shan leaned against the window, waiting for Lin Yi to arrive. She waited until 8 in the morning, and her eyes almost popped out when a yellow beetle appeared in front of her. This was Yushu's car, and Lin Yi usually drove it. Ling Shan knew this. After the car drove in, Ling Shan held her phone, waiting for Lin Yi to call her. But after waiting for a long time, Lin Yi didn't call. Ling Shan was puzzled. What was Lin Yi doing? Why wasn't he calling? She waited a while longer, but Lin Yi's call still didn't come through. Ling Shan was starting to panic, and after some hesitation, she decided to call Lin Yi. What made her depressed was that Lin Yi's line was busy. This Lin Yi, why did he come here to make a call? Ling Shan wanted to act more reserved, but Lin Yi didn't give her the chance. Li Shan couldn't take it anymore. She went downstairs first. What kind of date was this? Other people's dates were always the guys getting anxious, but she was the girl. But Ling Shan thought about it again. If Lin Yi was like other guys, acting like a yes man in front of her, she wouldn't like him either. Forget it, she was a masochist. Who told her to like guys who were stronger than her? Ling Shan packed up and went downstairs. While she was in the elevator, Lin Yi's call came in. Ling Shan was overjoyed. She picked it up. Hello? Lin Yi? But there was a beep from the other side of the phone, and then there was no network. Ling Shan was furious, and she almost smashed the phone. Why was there no signal? Lin Yi finally called, and there was no signal? Chapter 1078. Chapter 1076. Misunderstanding. Ling Shan liked strong men, but now she realized that she was a normal woman as well. If she could be a little gentler in the midst of being strong, that'd be perfect. Ling Shan got out of the elevator, and her phone rang again when she got to the lobby. Ling Shan looked at Lin Yi's number, getting excited. Lin Yi was calling again? It seemed like she could be a little more reserved now. Ling Shan couldn't help but feel happy at the thought. She adjusted her state and then picked up the phone. Hello? Silly girl, what's going on over there? I've been calling you for a long time, and now you're taking so long? Lin Yi's impatient voice came from the other side. Ling Shan almost teared up. She felt so wrong that she wanted to die. Was this for real? I was in the elevator, and I saw your car coming, so I came down. Ling Shan explained carefully. Oh, hurry up then. I'll wait for you at the door, Lin Yi said. Ling Shan hung up and ran out of the office, ignoring her grievances. She saw Lin Yi's car and got in. Who are you? What are you doing in my car? Lin Yi looked at the pretty girl in his car, confused. She looked familiar, but Lin Yi couldn't remember where he'd seen her before. Huh! Ling Shan's eyes went wide as she pointed at herself in disbelief. Did Lin Yi lose his memory in such a short amount of time? Ling Shan looked at that weird expression on Lin Yi's face. He didn't seem to be faking it. It's me, your silly girl? Have you forgotten? Ling Shan? Lin Yi frowned as he looked at Ling Shan. It's me. Ling Shan nodded. It was good that Lin Yi remembered. Lin Yi looked at the person carefully. It really was Ling Shan. It was just that her hairstyle had changed, and she had put on makeup, eyeliner, and eyelashes. She was much more beautiful than before, which surprised Lin Yi. Ling Shan used to wear a police uniform, and her hair was tied up casually. Because of her profession, she didn't put on any makeup, and Lin Yi almost didn't recognize her at all. You went to Korea? Lin Yi didn't expect that little girl's song would be so beautiful when she was dressed up. She wasn't the slightest bit inferior to those movie stars. Although Lin Yi was surrounded by beautiful women, he still couldn't help but be moved and couldn't help but make a joke. Korea? Ling Shan blinked. Plastic surgery. Lin Yi laughed. Go die. Ling Shan was pissed off. Plastic surgery? Did she even need it? This was called natural beauty. But after saying the word go die, Ling Shan jumped in fright and quickly changed her words. Linny! I wasn't talking about you, I was joking with you too. Linny shrugged and started the car. Ling Shan let out a breath of relief when she saw that Linny wasn't angry, but she was secretly delighted. Even Linny admitted that she was pretty? But Linny turned his eyes back to the road after saying that. Lin Yi's composure wasn't something a normal person could achieve. Where's your house? Let's go. Linny started the car. It's nearby. Go down this road after you leave the police station, and there's a small district about 1,000 meters away. Ling Shan said to Lin Yi, a little disappointed all she got from Lin Yi was a compliment and a joke. Other than that, there didn't seem to be anything else. Lin Yi nodded and started the car, driving in the direction Ling Shan was pointing at. The district Ling Shan lived in was a modern white-collar district. It was full of high-class people, and there was an air of experience everywhere. Lin Yi parked the car in the direction Ling Shan pointed and got out with Ling Shan. This is the place. Ling Shan came to a unit not far from the car, keyed in the password, and went upstairs with Lin Yi. Ling Shan's house was a small room, very popular with single people. Ling Shan only remembered that she didn't have any extra slippers after entering the house. Why don't you wear mine, and I'll go barefoot? Ling Shan said to Lin Yi after some hesitation. No one comes here usually, it's always been me. Lin Yi paused. It seemed like he was the first person to enter Ling Shan's room. Actually, if Ling Shan wasn't so stupid sometimes, Lin Yi would quite like her. She had all the curves, and she was pretty. Who wouldn't like her? Plus, she was as obedient as a kitten in front of Lin Yi, and that made Lin Yi feel a sense of domination. It was just that Lin Yi didn't want to cause trouble for himself. Ling Shan's dependence on him was strong enough already, and if something were to happen between the two, he wouldn't be able to do anything else in the future. He'd have to spend all his time helping her solve cases. I'll go barefoot, Lin Yi said casually, and took off his shoes and walked into the house. Ling Shan hesitated, but didn't say anything. She felt a sweetness in her heart. It seemed like Lin Yi was very strong on the surface, but he was actually very considerate. Ling Shan changed her shoes and walked into the house. She turned to Lin Yi. What do you want to drink? There's drinks and water. No need for the trouble. Lin Yi waved his hand. He didn't want to waste time. Helping Ling Shan level up was a very troublesome thing, and after that, Lin Yi still needed to recover his strength. Lin Yi was worried that the miss, and she wouldn't be happy if he went back too late. Oh? Ling Shan paused. Didn't you want to level up? Let's start now, Lin Yi said. Ah? We're starting now? Ling Shan paused. She wasn't quite ready yet. She had decided to take things one step further with Lin Yi, but this was still her first time. Shouldn't she at least build up some feelings and prepare some foreplay? For this, Ling Shan bought some red wine and candles, as well as some Western food. She wanted to DIY it and have a candlelit meal with Lin Yi, building up the atmosphere. She didn't think that Lin Yi would go straight to the point. Yeah, isn't that why you called me here? Lin Yi frowned as he retorted. Chapter 1079. Be frightened to death. Shower? Why are you showering? Are you dirty? Lin Yi paused. Why would Ling Shan shower when she got home? I'm not dirty, Ling Shan said, pissed off. She might not be dirty, but she'd showered the day before yesterday. She'd slept in the office last night, and it was inevitable that she'd become a bit of a clean freak. It was her first time, after all, so she had to be more formal, right? It'd be fine if she didn't have the conditions, but now that she did, she had to shower. Why would you shower if you're not dirty? Lin Yi said faintly. Won't the makeup on your face go to waste after showering? But you don't want to. Cultivate a relationship with me first. Ling Shan felt wrong. Naturally, she wanted to have a candlelight dinner with Lin Yi first. Naturally, she had to pay attention to her appearance. The prettier she was, the more Lin Yi's heart would move, and then the two would naturally hug and kiss, and Ling Shan could say no. She'd go shower first, and then the two would naturally fall onto the bed. One had to admit that Ling Shan's plan was quite perfect, but she was wrong about it. Her plan was a million miles away from Lin Yi's. Cultivate a relationship? Do we need to cultivate a relationship to raise our strength? Lin Yi blinked. This was the first time he'd heard of something like this. Looking at Ling Shan's shy face, Lin Yi suddenly thought of something. Ling Shan must have been thinking about it wrongly. In fact, when Ling Shan called Lin Yi and asked Lin Yi to come here to help her level up, Ling Shan had already hinted at something like this. But Lin Yi didn't think much of it at the time. But today, Ling Shan's behavior reminded Lin Yi of Ling Shan's true goal. Ling Shan wasn't trying to use the same method she used in the prison to level up, was she? That was a little too absurd. Lin Yi didn't know what Ling Shan's practitioner's arts were like, but he knew that it was special. He didn't believe that Ling Shan could level up just by thinking about a man touching himself. The last time she leveled up, she might have already touched the barrier of the next level, and that was why she broke through in that kind of situation. However, Lin Yi would never believe that he could level up simply by relying on such a thing. Other people would train their whole lives and still not make any progress, but Ling Shan just touched it for a while and broke through. This joke is not funny at all. Of course. It's my first time, after all. Ling Shan blushed as she carefully looked at Lin Yi's face, afraid that Lin Yi would get angry and leave. Ling Shan was a little annoyed. According to her investigation, Lin Yi should be a big playboy, surrounded by beauties, with a girlfriend, Tang Yun, and even having an unusual relationship with Meng Yao and Yushu. Today, Ling Shan wanted to dress herself up to attract Lin Yi, but she didn't expect that Lin Yi didn't seem to be attracted at all. This made Ling Shan very conflicted. Was she really that bad? It's fine, it's not my first time, Lin Yi said faintly. He thought about Ling Shan's misunderstanding, and decided to tease Ling Shan. In fact, Lin Yi liked the tiger girl from before, and arguing with her was quite interesting. It's not your first time? Then what was your first time? Ling Shan paused. She thought that it was Lin Yi's first time as well, but it didn't seem like it. So Lin Yi's first time was with Tang Yun? My first time was with myself, Lin Yi said faintly. In actuality, the first person Lin Yi helped increase his strength was indeed himself. Ling Shan paused, suddenly remembering a sentence she read on the internet, saying that most men gave their first time to their hands. Could it be that it was the same for Lin Yi? That explained everything. Ling Shan let out a breath of relief, but still asked hesitantly. So today was the second time? The second time was with a dog, Lin Yi said. Huh? Dog? Ling Shan's eyes widened upon hearing Lin Yi's words, and she pointed at Lin Yi, her mouth wide open. With a dog? Wasn't Lin Yi a little too strong? With a dog? Was this a real-life version of Beauty and the Beast? No, it should be a handsome guy and a mother beast. Yes, it's a dog, General Weiwu. Lin Yi nodded. Mighty General. Ling Shan almost fainted on the spot. Wasn't General Weiwu Meng Yao and Yushu's dog? Wasn't that dog a male? Lin Yi was with a male dog? How was that possible? Isn't this a little too inconceivable? Ling Shan felt a chill down her spine, and goosebumps popped up all over her body. She felt like she didn't like Lin Yi anymore. This man was too scary, wasn't he? Then, was there a third time? Ling Shan continued to ask. She was a policewoman, after all, and she'd seen a lot of crazier cases. What Lin Yi said made her a little nauseous, but it wasn't as bad as those people who ate babies alive. The third time. Faubert! Lin Yi said expressionlessly. Fu! Faubert! Ling Shan rolled her eyes, almost fainting. Faubert? Wasn't he Pingzhan's driver and butler? Wasn't he a man in his 40s or 50s? Lin Yi was with him? Were they gay buddies? No wonder Lin Yi was with a male dog. So this was the reason. Li Shan couldn't take it anymore. This was too disgusting, too perverted. She couldn't take it anymore. The last time she was in the dungeon, she had treated Lin Yi as her fantasy partner. She didn't think that Lin Yi would do something like this. He ate both humans and beasts. Ling Shan was even thinking that Faubert knew General Wei Wu. Did the three of them have a threesome? She couldn't take it anymore. Ling Shan felt like throwing up. She couldn't take it anymore. However, Lin Yi didn't care about Ling Shan's expression. He said normally, "I called Junbro when I was downstairs, wanting to try it out with him, but he's not in the city, so I gave up and came to you first." Junbro. Yang Hui Junbro? Ling Shan blinked. Yeah. Lin Yi nodded. Chapter 1080. You're thinking wrong. Oh. Alright, I'll be leaving then. Lin Yi nodded and stood up, getting ready to leave. Ling Shan started to hesitate as she watched Lin Yi leave without any hesitation. Was what Lin Yi said true or false? Ling Shan thought about it, and couldn't understand why it was happening. First of all, Lin Yi's words didn't seem to be reliable at all. From the time she spent with Lin Yi, she didn't think that Lin Yi was someone like that. Could it be that Lin Yi didn't like her and said that on purpose so that she wouldn't bother him? Ling Shan felt that it was very possible. Every time she asked for Lin Yi's help to find clues, Lin Yi would agree in the end, but he didn't seem very willing and impatient. As for Lin Yi, could he be using this as an excuse to distance himself from her? Was that why he was spouting nonsense? Wait. Ling Shan didn't want to let Lin Yi leave just like that. Is there anything else? Lin Yi turned around. Did you really do that with General Wei Wu and Faubert? Ling Shan looked into Lin Yi's eyes, trying to find the real answer. What do you mean? Lin Yi asked. It's sex. Ling Shan gritted her teeth. Sex? Lin Yi's eyes went wide as he looked at Ling Shan, confused. Me, General Wei Wu, and Faubert having sex? Are you retarded again? How did you think of that? Aren't your thoughts a little too complicated? Did you read too many Fujoshi novels? Why would I read Fujoshi novels? Didn't you say it before? The first time you gave it to yourself, the second was with Wei Wu, and the third was with Faubert. Ling Shan gritted her teeth. Why was this Lin Yi denying it all of a sudden? She scolded herself for being brainless again. She was really unlucky. She had just successfully leveled up into a little silly girl, but after a few days, she was demoted back to a brainless girl. That's right. This is the first time I've used this method to increase my strength. It's to help myself. The second time was for General Wei Wu and the third time was for Faubert. Is there a problem? Lin Yi asked back. What are you thinking? Why are your thoughts so complicated? You're talking about increasing strength. Ling Shan's face reddened. Did he really think wrong? But wasn't that the way to increase one's strength? Wasn't that how he had improved last time? And so, Ling Shan didn't want to admit defeat. Then how do you want to help me increase my strength? Take off your clothes, Lin Yi said faintly as he looked at Ling Shan. His plan to tease Ling Shan wasn't over yet. Take off my clothes? Ling Shan paused. If it were before, Ling Shan would have been more than happy to take off her clothes if he'd asked her to. She'd gladly do it, but Lin Yi wasn't going to let her. But now, Lin Yi said so many scary things, and although it didn't seem like what she thought it was, Lin Yi asking her to take off her clothes made her hesitate again. Could it be that when Lin Yi helped Faubert level up, Faubert took off his clothes too? Are you going to level up or not? My time is limited. If not, I'll be leaving first. Lin Yi frowned and said faintly. Level up. Ling Shan gritted her teeth, feeling wrong. But in an instant, she thought of another problem. She thought that Lin Yi might have been testing her. If Lin Yi really had something to do with Faubert and General Wei Wu, then why would Meng Yao and Yushu let Lin Yi stay in the villa? They'd kick him out, wouldn't they? Plus, Lin Yi had a pretty girlfriend, Tang Yun. If Lin Yi really had a problem with his sexual orientation, then what was up with Tang Yun? It couldn't be a toy, could it? Then he might as well look for Kang Xiaobo or Zhong Pingliang or something. Of course, there was also the possibility that Meng Yao, Yushu, And Tang Yun didn't know about Lin Yi at all, but how could that be possible? There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. If Lin Yi could tell her about this so easily, then there was no way he could keep it a secret. And so, Ling Shan thought that maybe Lin Yi was testing her on purpose, purposely putting himself in such a bad position so that Ling Shan wouldn't bother him in the future. With that thought, Ling Shan felt relieved. She reached out to untie her belt. Ling Shan was someone who liked cleanliness, so the first thing she did when she got home was to take off her pants and sit on the sofa, slowly taking off her other clothes. That way, the sofa wouldn't get dirty. And so, subconsciously, Ling Shan took off her pants as well. "What are you doing?" Lin Yi couldn't help but find it funny that Ling Shan was taking off her pants. He stopped teasing her. If he kept teasing her, she'd really get into trouble. After all, Lin Yi came to Ling Shan's place to help her get stronger, not to do anything else. "Weren't you the one who told me to take off my clothes?" Ling Shan looked at Lin Yi confused. "I told you to take off your clothes, but I didn't tell you to take off your pants," Lin Yi corrected. "Ah?" Ling Shan paused. "Taking off my clothes. Taking off my pants? Was there a difference?" Of course, there would be a difference if she tried to pick on the words, but didn't they all mean the same thing? Ling Shan was a little troubled. Could it be that Lin Yi really had some sort of special hobby? Did he only like the upper body and not the lower? But with all the suspicions from before, and after being tricked by Lin Yi, Ling Shan didn't say anything. "Take off your clothes, then." Ling Shan was numb to it. As long as she could get stronger, nothing else mattered. Ling Shan's thoughts started to come back to haunt her once more, and so she started to stop caring. After taking off her jacket, Ling Shan started to unbutton her shirt, but Lin Yi stopped her. "All right, just take off your jacket." Lin Yi really wanted to see more of Ling Shan's inner self, but he gave up on that idea. Some things needed to be done in moderation. This song girl had too many troubles, and solving cases for her was much harder than fulfilling Xiao Xiao's wishes. Plus, Lin Yi didn't want to have any more emotional debts for no reason. From the looks of it, it was already troublesome enough. Tang Yun and Xiao Xiao were confirmed as the first and second wives. Big Miss and Little Shu didn't know their true feelings. Little Shu's behavior was more obvious, but she often lied. The Miss didn't lie, but she rarely expressed anything. Chapter 1081. Her strength increases rapidly. Ling Shan was even more puzzled by Lin Yi's action. After all this time, all she had to do was take off her jacket? Lin Yi had only told her to take off her jacket to show the meridians on her wrists. Rolling up her sleeves was fine too, but Lin Yi was just joking with her. That's it. Then what do we do now?" Ling Shan's plans were all messed up, and she could only look at Lin Yi confusedly. "Go sit on the sofa," Lin Yi said faintly. With that, Lin Yi took a step forward and sat on the sofa. Ling Shan, on the other hand, hesitated for a moment before sitting beside Lin Yi. "All right then?" Ling Shan asked. Lin Yi didn't say much, only grabbing her hand, making her blush once more. It was her first time holding hands with someone of the opposite sex, and it was gone just like that. How romantic! "Circulate your inner force on your own," Lin Yi said and ignored her. He closed his eyes and entered the space of the jade pendant. Lin Yi had discovered that the energy in the jade space could be transferred to other people through his own body, and it wouldn't affect his own energy. This made Lin Yi quite happy. He could finally raise other people's strength without losing levels. Of course, this wouldn't be as effective as before, and Lin Yi wouldn't be able to get any benefits from transferring chi to other people. But Lin Yi had just leveled up, and he hadn't touched the barrier to the late phase of mystic yet. Even if he did it again, it wouldn't be of much use. When he really touched the barrier to the late phase of mystic, he'd have to do it again. Only then would he be able to achieve the same effect. Even so, Lin Yi already had a golden finger that no one else could compare to. Many people would reach the barrier of the next level, but they wouldn't be able to find the opportunity to break through in their lifetimes. But Lin Yi was different. As long as Lin Yi had enough chi in his body, he would be able to break through the barrier and reach the next level without any pressure. After Linny entered the Jade space, he started channeling the art of dragon mastery. Ling Shan was a bit puzzled channeling the practitioner's arts now. The spiritual energy in his house was very thin. Cultivating here shouldn't be of much use to a master of the late phase of the golden class, right? Ling Shan wanted to ask Linny what was going on, but seeing that Linny had his eyes closed, she gave up and followed Lin Yi's instructions, channeling the practitioner's arts. But in the next moment, a look of extreme shock appeared on Ling Shan's face. She suddenly felt a wave of pure qi flowing into her body from Lin Yi's body. And it was pouring into her body continuously. What was going on? Was Lin Yi transferring his qi to her? Did Lin Yi transfer the pure qi in his body to him? Ling Shan was a Wulian person, and naturally, she knew the rules of using qi. Normally speaking, every practitioner's arts would produce different qi, and they couldn't be used together. The best case scenario would be damage to the meridians, and the worst case scenario would be the two types of qi repelling each other and exploding. But Lin Yi's qi didn't seem to be like that. After Lin Yi's qi entered Ling Shan's body, it was absorbed very quickly, as if the qi was created for her practitioner's arts. This was more than enough to shock Ling Shan. How could she use Lin Yi's qi? Suddenly, Ling Shan remembered that time in the hospital, when Lin Yi healed Lu Buijia. He used his qi to heal him. Did this mean that Lin Yi's qi could really be used by others? Alright, even if she could use Lin Yi's qi, Ling Shan knew how precious it was. It was something that took a lot of hard work to get, and this little bit of qi already cost a lot of treasures. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had transferred her qi in just a short while, and it was already equivalent to a few months' worth of training for her. Was Lin Yi really willing to do this? At that thought, Ling Shan felt that Lin Yi really treated her well. She really did think that Lin Yi's method of leveling up was completely different from what she'd imagined. It wasn't dual practitioning, but a one-sided transfer of energy to her. Ling Shan felt a surge of gratitude in her heart. Ling Shan asked herself that she and Lin Yi weren't that close yet, were they? One had to know that even in many large sects, when disciples practiced the same martial arts, one side wouldn't easily pass on the true qi that they had painstakingly cultivated to others without reservation. This was because the hardships of cultivation were truly unimaginable. The higher one's cultivation level, the harder it was to advance even the slightest bit. Who would be willing to give their true qi to others? Ling Shan, on the other hand, only knew that her grandpa and grandma were the ones who helped each other with their qi. But they were husband and wife, an old couple. They'd been through thick and thin together for a lifetime, and naturally they'd worked together to run House Song well. But she and Lin Yi, they couldn't even be considered a couple, could they? How could Lin Yi be willing to do this for her? One had to know that every time her grandma helped her grandpa level up, she'd lose a lot of qi. She was already a mystic mid-phase peak, but every time she helped her grandpa level up, she'd lose some of her strength. This was one of the reasons why she hadn't improved all these years. With that thought, Ling Shan's gaze towards Lin Yi was filled with tenderness. She didn't like him for nothing. He treated her so well, and it touched her, but after a while, Ling Shan's face turned even weirder. Because Lin Yi hadn't stopped transferring qi to her. Lin Yi's qi was still coming in endlessly, and this had already exceeded Ling Shan's expectations. Even if her grandma was transferring qi to her grandpa, it wouldn't be this much at once. However, Lin Yi seemed to be endlessly transferring his pure energy over to him. Ling Shan frowned, thinking that there wouldn't be a problem, would there? But seeing Lin Yi with his eyes closed and not saying a word, Ling Shan couldn't say anything. In the end, Ling Shan sighed and closed her eyes, continuing to circulate her practitioner's arts, absorbing the qi that Lin Yi was transferring to her. Chapter 1082. Late Phase? Mystic? Ling Shan channeled her practitioner's arts, her heart filled with shock. But Lin Yi didn't seem like he was going to stop. Ling Shan could feel that she wasn't far from Golden Class Late Phase peak. Was this real? Was she dreaming? Ling Shan couldn't believe it. This was too surreal, wasn't it? but sometimes, things just weren't real. Ling Shan could feel her body absorbing more and more qi, and her strength was increasing rapidly as well. It could be said that today was the fastest day in her life that her strength had improved. If this were before, Ling Shan wouldn't be able to imagine that she could increase her strength this fast in such a short amount of time. Ling Shan had been fantasizing about using House Song's arts to get her to Golden Class Late Phase Peak, but that was just a fantasy. If House Song's arts were that useful, then her grandpa wouldn't have just reached Golden Class Late Phase Peak. But now, Ling Shan had a feeling that she could really break through. She could really reach Golden Class Late Phase Peak. Ling Shan looked at Lin Yi, who was still sitting there with his eyes closed, his face expressionless. She couldn't see anything wrong with it, and so she decided to stop Lin Yi for now. Ling Shan didn't want to disturb Lin Yi in a situation like this. Who knew if one sentence from her would distract Lin Yi and cause him to go crazy? Ling Shan knew that transferring qi to someone was much more complicated and difficult than training herself. One mistake and she'd go crazy, and so she was worried that Lin Yi might not be able to handle it, but she endured it. Ling Shan took a deep breath and closed her eyes again, greedily absorbing the qi that Lin Yi was transferring. This pure qi wasn't something that could be absorbed in the natural world, and so she treasured it a lot. She didn't want to waste any of it. This was all Lin Yi's hard work, and now he was giving it to her just like that. How could she let Lin Yi's kindness down? As grateful as she was, Ling Shan didn't dare slack off at all. She kept channeling House Song's practitioner's arts, and after a while, she felt the qi in her body increasing, as if she was about to reach the barrier of Golden Class Late Phase Peak. Was she going to break through this soon? A flash of disbelief flashed in Ling Shan's eyes. Lin Yi was forcefully pushing himself up from late phase to late phase peak. Soon, she felt like her body was about to explode. The qi surged into her body rapidly, and it wasn't slowed down by the barrier at all. Under normal circumstances, every time a person reached the barrier of the first stage, it would be hard to absorb more qi into the body, but this situation was different. Not only did the qi in her body not decrease, but it was actually increasing. Ling Shan couldn't bear the pain, but she was also shocked. She didn't know what would happen if this continued, or if there would be any side effects, but she didn't stop practicing. She thought that Lin Yi wouldn't harm her, and so, although the situation wasn't good, this was the sign of her breakthrough. Time passed, second by second, from morning till noon. Ling Shan's strength was increasing every second, and finally, she couldn't take it anymore. The qi in her body was saturated to a certain level. She was about to scream, but the next moment, her body felt like it was about to explode, and the result was a feeling that she had never felt before. This feeling was the same as that moment in the prison, and it made her feel like she was flying in the sky. Ling Shan couldn't help but moan. She broke through. She really broke through. Yes, she was now a Golden Class Late Phase Peak. Ling Shan didn't think that she would be a Golden Class Late Phase Peak now, even though she had just broken through a few days ago. Wasn't this leveling speed a little too scary? Ling Shan wanted to thank Lin Yi, but she suddenly realized that Lin Yi's qi didn't seem to have stopped, and it was still flowing into her body. No way? Ling Shan paused. Could it be that Lin Yi wanted to help her get to the next level? Ling Shan was shocked the current situation had completely exceeded her expectations. Didn't Lin Yi need to rest? But since Lin Yi didn't say anything, Ling Shan couldn't ask. She could only continue practicing House Song's practitioner's arts and absorb the qi from Lin Yi. 2 hours later, Ling Shan couldn't believe the reality in front of her. She actually touched the barrier of the profound rank. Was she going to break through again? Was she going to become a mystic? Ling Shan couldn't even imagine it. She really wanted to raise her hands and cheer. Mystic was a dream of many people. Stepping into Mystic from Golden Class not only did her strength increase by leaps and bounds, but her lifespan would also increase. Furthermore, with the protection of her vital energy, ordinary swords and spears would not be able to harm her. To Ling Shan, this was something she'd been dreaming of. But her excitement didn't last long, and she had to stop. The pure energy that Lin Yi sent over suddenly stopped when she touched the barrier of the mystic class. This meant that Ling Shan was still at golden class late phase peak, but she was only at golden class late phase peak. She was only one step away from mystic, but this step wasn't easy to cross. Lin Yi opened his eyes slowly, not surprised at all. It seemed that as long as he didn't break through to Earth class, he wouldn't be able to raise someone else's strength to mystic. But even so, Lin Yi was satisfied. This was much stronger than others. Although the masters he created were useless to him, it was still shocking to others. "I'm done, feel it yourself," Lin Yi said faintly. "You should be at golden class late phase peak now." Chapter 1083. Chapter 1081. Lin Yi's coldness. The current situation was, without a doubt, a pleasant surprise for Ling Shan. Ling Shan was definitely the leader of the younger generation right now, and she felt that it wouldn't be a problem for her to break through to mystic one day. But right now, the person she cared about the most was Lin Yi. She turned her head and looked at Lin Yi, her eyes filled with gratitude and tenderness. In the past, Ling Shan's feelings for Lin Yi were more like helplessness, but now, she felt that she really liked Lin Yi. What Lin Yi did was something that anyone would be grateful for. "Thank you, Lin Yi! How do you feel now?" Ling Shan looked at Lin Yi with concern. "You gave me all your qi then." I'm fine, Lin Yi said faintly. In fact, Lin Yi really was fine. This time, Lin Yi had only gone to sleep in the jade, and at most, he had wasted half a day of training without leveling up, but Lin Yi's own strength wasn't affected at all. All the energy that was given to Ling Shan came from the jade space, and Lin Yi's body was just a medium. Lin Yi said that, but Ling Shan, naturally, didn't believe him. How could he be fine after losing so much qi? Her grandma had only given her grandpa a bit of qi, and she had to go into isolation for a long time to recover, let alone Lin Yi giving her so much qi. "Lin Yi, thank you. I know that you must be having a hard time right now," Ling Shan said, touched. "I didn't think that you'd be so nice to me, giving me so much qi and raising my strength so much. I really don't know what to say." Ling Shan's original plan was to flirt with Lin Yi today and do some dual practicing, increasing her strength a little. What she didn't expect was that Lin Yi didn't do the dual practicing with her, but used another method to transfer his qi to her, forcibly increasing her strength. Ling Shan let out a breath of relief. Ling Shan was a little emotional towards Lin Yi, but this was her first time, after all. How could she not care? Even if the goal was dual practicing, she still felt that it should be more romantic. It'd be best if the first time wasn't for the dual practicing, but for love. Now she had successfully kept her first time, but in her heart, she was a little disappointed. She didn't quite understand Lin Yi's thought. Did Lin Yi have feelings for her or not? If Lin Yi had feelings for her, he could have just gone with the flow and slept with her, but Lin Yi didn't do that. But if Lin Yi didn't have feelings for her, then why would he waste so much qi on someone he didn't like? This qi didn't grow on trees, after all. It was so precious, why would he just give it to a stranger? Lin Yi said faintly as he looked at the emotional Ling Shan. "It's nothing, my dog's a golden class late phase peak too." "Ah?" Ling Shan paused, and then her face went red with anger at Lin Yi's words. Did Lin Yi think that she was on the same level as a dog? Did that mean that Lin Yi giving her strength was like giving a dog strength? "All right, it's getting late, I should go." Lin Yi stood up and walked towards the door without saying anything else. Lin Yi's reaction was completely out of Ling Shan's expectations. Ling Shan didn't know what to do with Lin Yi's coldness. Ling Shan didn't understand Lin Yi spent so much effort to give her strength, but in the end, he didn't do anything good. What did that mean? Of course, Ling Shan didn't believe what Lin Yi said before. Lin Yi's words only made Ling Shan angry for a moment before she calmed down. Although Lin Yi called her Miss Brain Dead and Miss Dumb, Ling Shan wasn't dumb or brain dead at all. Otherwise, she wouldn't be sitting in the position she was sitting in today. Ling Shan felt that Lin Yi purposely said that and acted so coldly. Back in the hospital, Lin Yi treated Lu Buijia's wounds, and he was sweating profusely. Today, he used even more qi. How could he be fine? Of course, just like what Linny said, General Weiwu might have become a master at the peak of the late phase of the golden class. But there must be a reason for it. Even if Linny had nothing better to do, he wouldn't level up a dog. Wait! Lingshan quickly stopped Linny after thinking about it. Linny couldn't help but frown inwardly at Lingshan's words. The reason why he acted so coldly was because he was afraid that Lingshan would be touched and do something like offering herself to him. The atmosphere between the two was already very ambiguous, and now that Lingshan had broken through, it was very possible that she'd do something rash again. Although Lin Yi's willpower was stronger than normal people, but in front of a beauty, if she used extreme seduction and temptation, maybe Lin Yi would give in. Of course, this wasn't what Lin Yi wanted to see. As of now, he only saw Lingshan as a pretty good friend, or at most a lover he had a bit of a relationship with. There was still a distance between lovers. Although Lin Yi thought that Miss Song wasn't bad, with a good face and a good body, Lin Yi was afraid that if something really happened between them, Miss Song would force him to do this and that, and Lin Yi didn't have that much time to deal with it. Plus, from Lin Yi's point of view, having a lover wasn't a problem. As long as Tang Ying didn't object, it wasn't a big deal. But Lin Yi really didn't have that much time to help Lingshan solve the case. There were so many wishes of Xiao Xiao that hadn't been fulfilled yet, and Lin Yi couldn't afford to be distracted by other things. And so, in summary, Lin Yi decided to treat Lingshan coldly, to prevent their relationship from advancing too fast. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was very unhappy when he stood up to leave. He thought that if Miss Song didn't have so many troubles, how great would it be? Is there anything else? Lin Yi asked faintly. You're tired, right? Why don't you rest a bit before you leave? I'll cook for you. Lingshan said softly, not affected at all by Lin Yi's words. Chapter 1084. Loss and Conflict. Ah? Lingshan paused, blushing. But she was a little angry. Lingshan was a little frustrated, but she still had her pride, and Lin Yi's words made her look like she didn't deserve it. Lingshan was a girl as well. She could accept being called an idiot and a dumb girl, but she couldn't accept being called a slut. Lingshan looked at Lin Yi angrily. Lin Yi, Lingshan, am not a casual woman. If you don't believe me, then there's nothing I can do. But what I want to say is that before that time in the basement, no man has ever seen my body. All right, I believe you, but not being casual has nothing to do with being slut. Lin Yi didn't want Lingshan to seduce him anymore. If this went on, something bad would happen sooner or later. He might as well end it as soon as possible. Now that Lin Yi had finished leveling up Lingshan's strength, Lingshan wouldn't be looking for Lin Yi in the near future. This was also why Lin Yi agreed to help her level up. Otherwise, with Lingshan's way of thinking, who knew what she meant by leveling up? Touching herself in front of him? Once or twice was fine, but after a while, Lin Yi wasn't a pervert. Something would definitely happen. Then, I'll only do it with you. Lingshan thought about it, and decided not to correct him. It was fine as long as Lin Yi believed in her innocence. As for doing it with Lin Yi, it wasn't a big deal. She'd already done it with Miss Brain Dead and Miss Dumb. She didn't mind being a slut again. If you like, you can call me slut too, pfft. Lin Yi froze at the words, almost falling to the ground. That worked? There were people who were willing to be sluts. What was wrong with them? I still have something to do. Let's talk on the phone. Lin Yi realized that he couldn't take it anymore. Lingshan really was a stunner, especially the way she was groveling in front of him and the way she was a little masochistic. It made Lin Yi want to go up and conquer her. Without a doubt, all the women around Lin Yi had their own specialties, but Lingshan was definitely an exception. Although she was extremely domineering in front of outsiders, in front of Lin Yi, she was a mess. This made Lin Yi feel very special. He had an indescribable sense of accomplishment. This kind of feeling made Lin Yi feel that it was very dangerous, and he couldn't stop even if he wanted to. Lin Yi didn't say anything else to Lingshan, pushing the door open and leaving the apartment. Ling Shan sighed, a little disappointed as she looked at Lin Yi's indifferent back. She really couldn't understand Lin Yi. This man really did move her heart, but at the same time, he confused her. Did he like her or not? Ling Shan gritted her teeth. Lin Yi, you've seen me naked. This was unforgivable for a noble house that valued women. Unless Ling Shan married Lin Yi, she'd be a laughingstock if word got out that she'd be the butt of everyone's jokes. Many big houses were like this, allowing men to have multiple wives and concubines, and the young masters of noble houses were allowed to play with women as much as they wanted before marriage. No one would say anything about it, but the young misses of noble houses were not allowed to have anything to do with a man before marriage, unless it was her fiancé. Otherwise, even if it was holding hands or looking at her body, it was absolutely not allowed. This was why Ling Shan had the thought of giving up before, but as time went on, she really did like this strong man, Lin Yi. Ling Shan felt that only Lin Yi was worthy of her. All these reasons made Ling Shan make this decision today. But this decision couldn't be realized, because Lin Yi didn't dual practice with her at all, and he even rejected the idea of dual practice. Could it be that Lin Yi had a cold personality? Ling Shan speculated, not without a hint of viciousness. She was pissed. Ling Shan stomped her feet in anger. She knew very well whether or not Lin Yi had a cold personality. Back in the hospital, Lin Yi had a reaction. That was why Ling Shan was so angry. Humph. Lin Yi, the man I've set my sights on, I will never change. Ling Shan gritted her teeth. After cursing Lin Yi for a while, Ling Shan got excited again. The joy of leveling up made her want to tell her grandpa immediately. Ling Shan temporarily put the matter with Lin Yi at the back of her mind and quickly picked up her phone, calling her grandpa's room number. Hello? The head of House Song Xianwen, picked up very quickly. This was his private number, and only the children of House Song and the heads of other noble houses knew about it. During the day, Song Xianwen pretty much stayed in his room to train, so he picked up the phone immediately. Grandpa, it's me! Ling Shan said excitedly. I have good news for you. Oh? Shan, it's you! It's been a while since I last called Grandpa. What is it? Do you have good news for me? Xianwen heard that it was his granddaughter's voice, and his tone became very kind. Ling Shan was the most outstanding member of the younger generation in House Song, having the strength of a late-phase golden class at such a young age. Her future was limitless. But sometimes Xianwen felt that it was a pity that Ling Shan was a girl. Wouldn't it be great if she was a boy? How long has it been? Didn't I call you to tell you the good news when I broke through to late-phase golden class? Ling Shan said coquettishly. In front of her grandpa, she became a spoiled little girl again. This was Ling Shan's changeable personality. Ha, it's been a few days, hasn't it? Xianwen smiled. Shan, what good news do you have for Grandpa? Why don't you take a guess? Ling Shan smiled, keeping him in suspense. Oh? All right, then let Grandpa guess. Is it because you solved a big case, and your position is going to be promoted? Xianwen guessed. It's not that. I've solved a lot of big cases, but that's my job, my responsibility. There's nothing to be happy about, Ling Shan said faintly. Then it's not that? Xianwen paused and thought about it. Could it be that you have a boyfriend? Ling Shan's face reddened at her grandpa's words. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener got it. Xianwen knew that his granddaughter had high standards, so he said it to tease her, but he didn't think that he would hit the nail on the head. Xianwen paused when he heard that Ling Shan didn't say anything. Could it be that he was right? His granddaughter had a boyfriend? However, Song Xianwen's heart was a little nervous. Chapter 1085. Chapter 1083, Ling Shan's Criteria. Shan, you really got a boyfriend? Xianwen asked, a little nervous. Not yet. Ling Shan, naturally, wouldn't tell him about Lin Yi. This was her privacy. Plus, Lin Yi had a girlfriend now, and she was only a mistress now. Fourth or fifth, it was embarrassing. Oh. Not yet, Xian Wen heard his granddaughter's words and calmed down, but he was still a little disappointed. His granddaughter was all grown up now, and she still didn't have a man she liked. He thought that Yutian and Yutian would be together, and while he didn't have high hopes for him, Yutian was from a noble house, after all, so he didn't object. But the current situation was completely different from the past. Lingshan was only a golden class mid-phase back then, and Yutian was a golden class early phase. The two weren't that far apart, and so Xian Wen could accept it. But now, Lingshan was a golden class late phase, and the difference between her and a golden class early phase was huge. Xian Wen naturally didn't want his granddaughter to marry Yutian again. Song Xiangwen's influence was actually quite normal. House Song's hope was now resting on Lingshan, but no matter how much Lingshan's strength increased, she would still have to marry someone else and become someone else's wife. And so, Lingshan's strength could only be used as a bargaining chip for House Song to connect with other houses. The stronger Lingshan got, the stronger her son-in-law would be, and the more help he'd be to House Song. As long as House Song held on until Lingshan's brother grew up, they'd be able to keep their position. And so, Xian Wen wanted Lingshan to find a stronger man to take care of her brother. From the looks of it, Lingshan didn't have a boyfriend, and Xian Wen was worried as well. He knew Lingshan's standards, and if this continued, the only one who could surpass her would be that House Yu's disciple, who had never shown his face before. None of the younger generation in the noble houses were a match for Lingshan anymore. "Grandpa, I broke through again. I'm a golden class late phase peak now," Lingshan said, seeing that her grandpa couldn't figure it out. "Oh. You broke through again. What? Shan, what did you say? You said you broke through again? How is that possible?" Xiangwen's eyes widened in shock. How was this possible? If he remembered correctly, the last time Lingshan broke through was a couple of days ago. Even a few days ago, Song Xianwen was shocked for quite a while. He didn't expect his granddaughter to be a master of the late phase of the golden class at such a young age. He himself was only at the peak of the late phase of the golden class, right? "Grandpa, you didn't hear wrongly. I really did break through the barrier again, and I'm at golden class late phase peak now. And I'm at golden class late phase peak, just one step away from mystic." Lingshan felt sweet and emotional at the same time. It was a barrier that many people work so hard to reach, but Linny had broken through it just like that. The feeling Linny gave Lingshan was that he was getting more and more mysterious, stronger and stronger. As far as she knew, there weren't many noble houses that could forcefully raise people's strength. Even if there were, they wouldn't be able to raise people's strength by one level and still be able to stand up and speak without any problems. "What? You're a golden class late phase peak full circle now?" Xian Wen was even more shocked after hearing his granddaughter's words. He wasn't even at golden class late phase peak full circle, but Lingshan was already there? "Grandpa, don't be doubtful. I wouldn't joke about something like this," Lingshan said with certainty. "That's true. Shan, you never joke around with Grandpa." Xian Wen nodded, a little emotional. Shan, I really didn't think that you'd become the pride of our house. Grandpa, don't worry, I'll work hard," Lingshan said after some hesitation. But in her heart, she knew that no matter how hard she tried, it wouldn't be as effective as Linny forcefully raising her strength. "Yeah. I know, but you're a girl, and you'll have to get married eventually. But with your strength, it'll be hard for you to find someone stronger than you," Xian Wen said worriedly. "Grandpa, I've said it before. My future husband has to be stronger than me. He has to be a man with an indomitable spirit. I won't change that," Lingshan said firmly. All right, since that's what you think, I won't force it. But I'll keep an eye out for you." Xian Wen nodded, thinking that this was a good thing. If Lingshan's man was stronger than her, it would be a good thing for House Song as well. "Grandpa. It's okay." Lingshan blushed. She already had someone she liked, but their relationship was a little messy. Lingshan didn't want to be honest with him yet. With Lin Yi's strength, Lingshan didn't think that she could interfere with Lin Yi or change anything about Lin Yi. She couldn't let Lin Yi abandon Tang Yun and only love her. From Lingshan's perspective, that was impossible. She didn't even dare think about it. It was already good enough that she wasn't pressured by Lin Yi, and she still dared to ask Lin Yi for help. But the eldest granddaughter of House Song going to be someone else's mistress? If word got out, wouldn't they become a laughingstock? Of course, unless Lin Yi had absolute strength that could shut those people up and make them envious of Lingshan for being Lin Yi's mistress. Other people wanted it, but Lin Yi didn't want it. Lin Yi, could you do it? Lingshan was looking forward to it. She wasn't a shameless woman. She could let go of her pride in front of Lin Yi because it was something between two people. It was like flirting between lovers. No one else could see it, so it didn't matter. But in front of outsiders, she couldn't do it. Lingshan had her pride, and she was a very strong and proud woman. Lingshan's words, in Xianwen's eyes, were just acting coquettishly. He laughed. It's fine, I'll keep an eye out for you. See if there are any good young men. All right, Grandpa, let's talk later. I need to take a shower. I just broke through, and I'm already soaked in sweat. Lingshan didn't want to continue this topic. All right, go. If there's any good news, you have to tell Grandpa first, Xianwen said happily as he hung up. Chapter 1086. House Yu's plans, of course, unless Lingshan never married, or if she found a useless grandson-in-law, but this was in line with House Song's interests. As far as Xianwen was concerned, with Lingshan's strength, she'd definitely find a stronger man. But the most important thing right now was to tell House Yu this good news. The Noble House meeting this year was about to begin, and Lingshan's breakthrough had, without a doubt, increased House Song's position in the Noble House meeting. The strength of a noble house needed to be evaluated in a comprehensive manner. The strongest person was one aspect, and so was the wealth, but the most important aspect was the strength of the younger generation. After all, the younger generation was the hope of the noble house. And Lingshan, without a doubt, had become the strongest person other than that mysterious disciple of House Yu. Although House Yu had been in a lot of trouble recently, with Yu Bide getting killed and Yu Kun getting crippled, it didn't affect House Yu's position. From House Song's perspective, there was a hidden house behind House Yu, and they had to stand up for House Yu. Plus, House Yu had an Earth class who went to a hidden house to train, and this was the foundation of House Yu. Losing Yu Bide and Yu Kun wasn't much. House Yu couldn't hide this even if they wanted to. Which noble house didn't have their own information channels? But in the eyes of these noble houses, those who went against House Yu had to be tired of living to actually make a move against House Yu. One could only imagine the consequences. Hello? Hello? Shuixing picked up the phone. He hadn't been in a good mood lately, because of Yu Bide and Yu Kun's situation. Now that Yu Feng had left, he was a lone general in House Yu. Yu Feng, on the other hand, didn't have any good news, and it gave Shuixing a bad feeling. Could it be that Lin Yi was too mysterious and hard to investigate? Otherwise, with Yu Feng's methods, he'd be able to get some information, right? As for House Yu, his big brother didn't make any moves, and he didn't know if he'd come out of seclusion. This put Shuixing in a difficult position. He even regretted it. If he didn't send Shao Kun to Songhan to search for the map fragments, then this wouldn't have happened. Lin Yi's strength had exceeded House Yu's expectations. House Yu seemed to have provoked an enemy they shouldn't have. However, what was the use of regretting now? Since he was already dead, he still had to take revenge. Mr. Yu? I'm Song Xianwen. According to seniority, Xianwen was Shuixing's elder, but House Yu was like the sun in the sky right now, and Shuixing was the current head of House Yu. He was on the same level as Xianwen in the noble house meeting, maybe even a little higher, so Xianwen had no choice but to call him Mr. Yu. Greetings, Patriarch Song! Shuixing's attitude improved upon hearing that it was Song Xianwen. He wasn't happy, but he knew that he couldn't vent his anger in front of another house head. House Yu was in trouble now, and he had to protect House Yu's benefits. He couldn't afford to offend other noble houses, especially a house like House Song, a house with a certain level of strength. He had to win them over to protect House Yu's position as a noble house. From the looks of it, the hidden house's attitude was very ambiguous. They didn't say anything about coming forward, but they didn't say that they wouldn't. Shuixing had to think of a way himself. At the very least, House Yu had to be the leader of the noble houses in the upcoming meeting, and he had to have the right to speak. Mr. Yu, I have good news to share with you. My granddaughter Shanshan has successfully broken through to the peak of the late phase of the golden class, and she's at the peak of the late phase. Xian Wen smiled happily. Before the aristocratic family assembly was held, each family would inform the organizer of the aristocratic family assembly of their strength. This was also to prepare for the seating arrangement of the aristocratic family assembly. The stronger ones would naturally sit at the top. Oh? Lingshan? She's golden class late phase peak already? Shuixing paused. He remembered that Xian Wen had told him that Lingshan had just broken through to golden class late phase, right? How long had it been, and she'd already reached golden class late phase peak already? Didn't that mean that she was only one step away from mystic early phase? Shuixing was very surprised by Lingshan's increase in strength. The girls of the other noble houses were all Shuixing's targets. He didn't pay attention to them because he was a pervert, but because he wanted to find a suitable girl for his son to marry. This was to solidify House Yu's position. Lingshan, Yushu, Sun Jingyi, and Lu Jinghan were all targets of Shuixing's observation. It wasn't that the other noble houses had these three girls, but that only these girls who were around Yu Feng's age were suitable. Of course, the first one Shuixing excluded was Yushu. In House Yu's eyes, House Chen was basically done for. With Elder Chen's death, Yudian's mediocre strength wasn't enough for House Chen to stand firm. Plus, Yushu wasn't a practitioner, so she had no value at all. In other words, it would be nice to have her as a concubine for his son to play with, but not as a legal wife. And so, the remaining targets were Lingshan, Sun Jingyi, and Lu Jinghan. Lu Jinghan had shown her talent in business, but according to the data, she wasn't a practitioner. House Lu was a business family, and they didn't have any practitioners. And so, Lu Jinghan was excluded as well. Only Lingshan and Sun Jingyi were left. Lingshan and Sun Jingyi were both true practitioners. But there was a huge difference between the two. House Song's Kung Fu was a normal Kung Fu, but it could assist in dual practitioning, increasing her husband's strength. But the effects of dual practitioning depended on the practitioner's physique, and everyone was different. House Sun's Kung Fu, on the other hand, was a healing art. House Sun's Kung Fu could heal wounds, and it could also convert qi to be used by others. And from a noble house's perspective, House Sun's Kung Fu was more stable. Although they weren't good at attacking, this type of support Kung Fu was very popular. Which noble house didn't want a mobile hospital and a mobile training room? Marrying Sun Jingyi meant that she could assist Yu Feng in his training and healing. At that time, even if Yu Feng's meridians were damaged like Yu Kuan, he could recover slowly with Sun Jingyi's help. Chapter 1087. Marriage between Song and Yu. But now, Shuixing was changing his mind. Lingshan's progress was out of his expectations. Right now, Lingshan was only one step away from mystic. If she were to marry into House Yu, it would definitely be a good thing for them. Plus, House Song's Kung Fu would only be more effective after dual practitioning, benefiting both genders. At that time, Lingshan's breakthrough to mystic would be unstoppable, and his son would be able to take a step further, reaching mystic mid-phase peak, maybe even late phase. House Yu would rise to glory once more. With time, his son would break through to Earth class with Lingshan's help, and he wouldn't have to be afraid of anything then. Lin Yi and whatnot, he'd be able to kill them straight away. Mystic class was nothing in front of an Earth class. Shuixing had heard that some ancient sects had their own arts that allowed them to fight enemies above their level, but those were just legends. Who knew if they actually existed? And so, in Shuixing's dictionary, Earth class was an invincible existence in the common world. Congratulations, Elder Song! Shuixing's tone became more respectful at the thought of the marriage, and he called Xian Wen Elder Song. He took out the attitude that a junior should have, and no longer addressed him as the Song clan master in a formal manner. Haha, it's all right. Xian Wen pretended to be humble. But she's still a girl, after all. Other houses will have to take advantage of her in the future. Haha, you're too serious, Elder Song. Shuixing smiled. The times have changed, and we noble houses have to keep up with the times as well. There's a saying that says it doesn't matter if you give birth to a boy or a girl. She, Lingshan, getting married doesn't mean she's not your granddaughter, Elder Song? She still is. Haha. Song Xiangwen also smiled and said, That may be the case, but in the end, the person in charge of the family is still a man. We can't let an outsider take advantage of us, can we? That's right, we noble houses are different. Shuixing smiled. Since we're talking about marriage, I thought of something. Your granddaughter isn't young anymore, right? It's about time for her to find a husband, right? That's true, but Shanshan is a stubborn child. She has already said that her future husband must be stronger than her. Song Xiangwen said helplessly but proudly. If it was someone else, they wouldn't be qualified to say such words. Now that Lingshan was in a dominant position, he had to do this. All outstanding girls are like this. Shuixing was naturally happy to hear that Lingshan didn't have a husband yet. But I think Lingshan's the best out of all the noble houses, right? How could there be someone stronger than her? As far as I know, there aren't any late-phase golden class peak disciples from other noble houses. Yeah, that's what I'm worried about too. Xianwen sighed. Shanshan's getting stronger and stronger, and she's about to break through to mystic. At that time, there'll be no one who can fight her. She can't just stay unmarried for the rest of her life, can she? Having another mystic in House Song was a good thing, but Lingshan wouldn't be able to bring more benefits to House Song if she didn't marry. Besides, he didn't want his granddaughter to be alone for the rest of her life. There were two sides to every coin. On one hand, Xianwen wanted Lingshan to become stronger, but on the other hand, he didn't want her to be single. Elder Song, what do you think of my son? Shuixing was waiting for Xianwen to say this, and so he brought up his own opinion. Oh? Your son? Xianwen paused. Yes, Shuixing said. From the looks of it, the only ones who are stronger than Lingshan are the disciples of House Yu. If you're willing, we can get married. Xianwen paused. He didn't think that even House Yu would throw him an olive branch. Xianwen didn't even dare think about a marriage with House Yu before, but now that Lingshan's strength had increased, it was all a reality. What's wrong, Elder Song? You don't seem too willing? Shuixing smiled. Why would I? I was just shocked. Right, your son has never appeared in public before. Xianwen was thinking that a marriage with House Yu would be great, but if House Yu's disciples were too weak, then Lingshan wouldn't agree to it. He had to make things clear first. My son is a mystic mid-phase. Shuixing couldn't help but feel proud. Among the noble houses, only the younger generation of House Yu had reached this level. What? Your son is already a mystic mid-phase. Xianwen couldn't help but jump at Shuixing's words. This meant that a mystic mid-phase was more than enough for his granddaughter. With that thought, Xianwen couldn't help but be overjoyed. Not only did he get a rare grandson-in-law, he even got a super helper like House Yu. Haha, he's probably breaking through soon. Shuixing started bragging. A mystic at such a young age. Xianwen couldn't help but sigh. I'm really getting old. So, what do you think of my suggestion, Elder Song? Shuixing asked. Not bad. I have no objections. Xianwen, naturally, was 100% satisfied. This was a blessing from the heavens. House Song's problem was solved. As long as they had House Yu's support, House Song would be able to continue being one of the noble houses. Plus, Yu Feng's strength completely met his granddaughter's requirements. His granddaughter would definitely be satisfied. All right, if Elder Song has no objections, then it's settled, Shuixing said. In a few days, I'll bring my son over to visit Elder Song, and then we'll settle this. Shuixing may be the head of House Yu, but he was still a junior, and now that he had a marriage with House Song, Elder Song was a senior. Naturally, he had to pay her a visit. Song Xianwen didn't refuse. Okay, I will do my best as a host, Song Xianwen said happily. Ling Shan still didn't know that her marriage had been settled by her grandpa, just like that she'd probably be pissed to death if she knew. How could she marry into House Yu? Xianwen, however, thought that his granddaughter would be satisfied. Chapter 1088. Chapter 1086. Xie Yufeng's gloominess. Xie Yufeng had been quite troubled these past few days. He hadn't even gotten to know Lin Yi's background yet, and he was already at a disadvantage. Not only did he get beaten up for no reason, but his butt was also messed up. And so, he didn't report this to his father. It was embarrassing enough already, and he didn't want to report it. He didn't think that his father would call before Xie Yufeng even reported it. Yufeng hesitated for a bit before picking it up. Hello? Father! Yufeng said. Yufeng, how are you? You've been in Songhan for so many days, are you used to it? Shuixing asked with a smile. His son was his pride, the pride of House Yu. House Yu's future depended on him. It's all right. Yufeng was visibly stunned as he said this. He didn't have the face to talk to his father. This was too embarrassing. He was the young master of House Yu, and he had come to Songhan full of ambition, ready to make a name for himself, but he didn't expect to be so unlucky. He didn't even get to do anything with Lin Yi before getting beaten up by someone he didn't know. If he really were beaten up by Lin Yi, then Yufeng wouldn't say anything. He'd just have to take a little loss in order to investigate Lin Yi's background. But the problem was that Lin Yi didn't make a move. How is it? Have you figured out Lin Yi's background? Shuixing didn't hear the disappointment in his son's voice, still smiling as he asked. Not yet. There aren't any openings. I can't make a move, Yufeng said, troubled. I feel like I don't know where to start. Oh. It's fine, just stay in Songhan for now. I have other things to do anyway. Shuixing wasn't in a rush. Other things? Yufeng paused. Is there anything else? Haha, of course. Yufeng, you're not young anymore. I've arranged a marriage for you, Shuixing said with a smile. Marriage? Yufeng paused. He didn't object to the family's decision. He grew up in a noble house, and he knew that his marriage was just a bargaining chip. It would be decided by his father. Of course, Xie Yufeng didn't care. He was a man. Even if he married a wife he didn't like and wasn't pretty, he could still keep a mistress. This wasn't a secret among the young masters of the noble houses, so the most tragic part of marriage was the woman. Not to mention marrying a man she didn't like, it was possible for her to be alone in an empty house, and it was impossible for her to have an affair. Things were just so unfair. When a man cheated, it was called being romantic and elegant. When a woman cheated, it was called not being virtuous. So Yufeng didn't care about the marriage at all. What does this have to do with me being in Songhan? Yes, the girl I've arranged for you is House Song's granddaughter, Ling Shan. She's already at Golden Class Late Phase Peak. Shuixing smiled. This kid's not bad, he's quite talented, reaching Golden Class Late Phase Peak at such a young age. I have high hopes for him. Ling Shan? Yufeng reacted when he heard the name. Song Ling Shan from House Song, I think I've met her once. She's not bad? How was it just okay? Yufeng was overjoyed when he heard that the girl was Ling Shan. Ling Shan wasn't just pretty, she had a great body, and her breasts were huge. Yufeng wanted to laugh up his sleeve. With a beauty like this as his wife, he'd be in for it. Yufeng originally didn't have much interest in the girl he was going to marry. After all, House Yu cared about the whole benefit. If they got an ugly girl, he'd have no choice but to accept it. As long as they kept the marriage going, he'd look at this girl once in a while, and the rest of the time, he'd go play. But his father's words ignited the fire of desire in Yufeng's heart. He was just too lucky. And I think it's not a bad idea. She's working in Songshan's police station right now, so I think you should stay in Songhan and interact with her for a bit. After a while, when Lin Yi's matter is over, you can come with me to visit House Song and ask for her hand in marriage. Xuexing said. All right, no problem. Yu Feng quickly agreed. To him, this was an unexpected surprise. He was just worrying about how boring life was in Songtan, and now he had something to do. Hitting on girls had always been Yu Feng's favorite. It'd be best if you can have some sort of relationship with her in advance and solidify your relationship. Otherwise, the granddaughter of House Song is very outstanding, and I'm afraid that she'll be targeted. Xuexing reminded. I heard that House Chen's Chenyidian has been chasing after Lingshan for a couple of years now. House Song's Kung Fu is a top-level practitioner's practitioner. It'll be good for you too. I know, don't worry, Dad, I'll take care of this. Yu Feng was afraid that his father would want him to treat Lingshan politely before the marriage, but now his father was telling him to find a chance to sleep with Lingshan. And right, how's your Kung Fu? Have you made any progress? You've been stuck at Mystic Early Phase Peak for a while now, right? Are there any signs of a breakthrough? Xuexing asked. Not yet. Yu Feng had been so depressed these past 2 days he didn't have the mood to train at all. I've already told everyone that you're a mystic mid-phase. Don't let that slip in front of Lishan. Xuexing warned. Oh? Why did you say I'm mystic mid-phase? Yu Feng paused. House Song's old madam, Lingshan's grandmother, is a mystic mid-phase, so I purposely told everyone that you're mystic mid-phase, so that you can have a bigger say in House Song. Xuexing said. Yu Feng paused, understanding his father's intentions immediately. He couldn't help but sigh. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. His father was truly cunning. In the noble houses, strength was the deciding factor, and the higher the strength, the more power one had. In House Song, if Yu Feng had the same strength as old Madame Song, then he'd be on the same level as old Madame Song. Yu Feng's position in House Song would skyrocket. But won't that give me away? Yu Feng asked, a little hesitant. No, they won't check your strength. If you don't circulate your qi, how would they know? Xuexing said nonchalantly. Plus, there's still some time before you get married. You might have broken through by then. Chapter 1089. Together on a trip, this phone call made Yu Feng quite happy. His father had given him another rather pleasant mission. Yu Feng's gloomy mood was swept away. As for Lin Yi's investigation, his father didn't set a time limit, and he didn't mention much about it this time either. The main thing was for him to do with Lingshan. Yu Feng really liked this mission. Old Song Xianwen, on the other hand, wanted to give his granddaughter a surprise, so he didn't tell her about the marriage. As far as Xianwen was concerned, she'd be very happy after hearing this news. After all, Lingshan's wish was for a man stronger than her, and this man, as far as Xianwen was concerned, had to be someone from House Yu. Other noble houses' heirs wouldn't be this strong. Lin Yi didn't know that Lingshan's happy call would attract so much trouble. When Lin Yi walked out of Lingshan's apartment, it was already very late. The night breeze cleared his mind quite a bit. Lingshan's temptation almost made Lin Yi lose control. Ever since he blended into this relaxed life, Lin Yi realized that his heart had changed. He was no longer as cold and emotionless as before, and he no longer had a heart of stone. The him now was much more easily moved. Life seemed to have become more interesting, but Lin Yi really didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing. After getting in the car, Lin Yi drove home, but on the way there, he was thinking about a very important problem. As of now, Lin Yi's biggest weakness was that he didn't have enough helpers. One could say that out of all the practitioners Lin Yi had, the strongest was himself. Although Lin Yi really wanted to bring Faubert, Weiwu, and Lingshan to higher levels, he couldn't do anything. The energy in the jade space was endless, but if he used his body as a medium to transfer it, there would be a bottleneck. This bottleneck came from one's own strength. He was a mystic, and he could only bring others up to golden class late phase peak, not one bit more. So, if he wanted to make others stronger, then Lin Yi had to become stronger first. Only when Lin Yi broke through to Earth class could he bring the people around him to mystic. But this made Lin Yi feel like it was useless. He was already an Earth class master, and having a Mystic class master as a helper wouldn't be as effective. If he could let others directly absorb the energy in the Jade space, then that would be great. But even if they could, Lin Yi didn't want others to know his secret. This secret was his trump card, and those who could share it with him had to be the ones closest to him. If Tang Yun was also a practitioner, then Lin Yi wouldn't hesitate to share this secret with her. Lin Yi was very clear about Tang Yun's feelings for him. She was a girl who would never leave him, and even wanted to drop out of school to accompany him back to his hometown to farm. But other people, Lin Yi didn't have enough trust. Of course, even if he trusted them, Lin Yi couldn't let them directly absorb the energy in the Jade space. If he could release and transfer the energy out of the Jade space, then it would be easy, but Lin Yi was just thinking about it. When he got back to the villa, Lin Yi saw Meng Yao and Yushu sitting in front of the coffee table, flipping through a bunch of posters. For the first time, they weren't watching TV. Seeing that Lin Yi was back, the miss only nodded. She didn't show any joy or dissatisfaction. Lin Yi was already used to this. The miss had this kind of cold personality. On the other hand, Yushu called out impatiently. "Shield bro, what took you so long? Come and help me and Yao Yao sis. Where are we going to play? Where are we going to play?" Lin Yi was slightly surprised. He walked to the sofa beside Yushu and sat down. He asked curiously, "Play what?" "There's a long holiday for May Day. Yao sis and I are planning to go out and play." "Shield bro, where do you think we should go?" Yushu explained as she pointed at the posters on the coffee table. "Yao Yao sis and I are a little dizzy, can you help us take a look?" "May Day holiday?" Lin Yi suddenly remembered that May Day was International Labor Day. It was a legal holiday. It turned out that he had become a normal person. The Lin Yi of the past didn't have holidays. When there was a mission, no matter when, Lin Yi had to throw himself into work. When there was no mission, it was a holiday. So Lin Yi was very indifferent to the concept of holidays. It wasn't until Yushu said this that he realized that he was a student now. Naturally, he had to have a holiday. "Yeah!" Yushu nodded and passed a bunch of posters to Lin Yi. "Where do you guys want to go?" Lin Yi didn't look at the posters. He put them aside and said, "The advertisements on them are a little exaggerated. It doesn't matter whether I look at them or not. But on May Day, my medicine company is opening. I can't leave. You two go? Then we'll go on May 2nd. It's a couple of days off anyway," Yushu said casually. "Right, Yao Yao sis?" "Yeah." "Lin Yi, I meant to invite Tang Yun and Xiao Xiao. Let's go together." Meng Yao nodded and looked at Lin Yi. The Miss words surprised Lin Yi. He didn't expect her to invite Tang Yun and Xiao Xiao. But then again, the Miss had always been a reasonable person. Lin Yi wasn't surprised that she made this decision. It was just that she said it herself and not through Yushu. That was why Lin Yi felt weird. "Sure, but I saw Xiu Xiao's phone. She wants to go to the beach to watch the sunrise. Why don't we go on a tour there?" "We won't go with the tour group." Lin Yi remembered Xiao Xiao's wish to watch the sunrise and eat poached eggs. But thinking about it made Lin Yi feel confused and amused. Lin Yi didn't get it. What was the connection between watching the sunrise and eating poached eggs? How did Xiao Xiao connect these two things together? "Sure." Meng Yao didn't object. "You arrange it then." "Oh, that's great. I can go catch sharks again." Yushu clapped her hands. She was very supportive of going to the beach. Chapter 1090. Chapter 1088. House Chumingyao, on the other hand, picked up the posters. Looking at Lin Yi's back, Meng Yao had an indescribable feeling in her heart. Lin Yi was spending less and less time in the villa, especially during the weekends. Lin Yi used to be at home with her and Shu, but now, he was leaving early and coming back late. Meng Yao knew that she couldn't interfere with Lin Yi's actions, but she still felt a little disappointed. "Yao Yao, what's wrong? You look disappointed?" Yushu said with a smile as she looked at the unhappy Meng Yao. Is it because Shield Bro hasn't been in the villa all day? Don't say that, I'm not disappointed. Linny has things to do, and Xiao Xiao's days are numbered. I'm not someone who doesn't see the big picture. Even if he doesn't do his job as a follower, it's fine, Meng Yao said faintly. Actually, Yao Yao, you can pretend to be sick too, Yushu suggested. That way, Shield Bro can stay with you. What nonsense are you talking about? Pretend if you want to. Meng Yao glared at her and turned on the TV. Yushu's idea was too unreliable. Who was Linny? He was a medical expert, after all. If Linny found out that she was pretending, wouldn't she become a laughingstock? Meng Yao wouldn't do something that stupid. In a dark room in the Dark Palace, the Palace Master Wanner sat on the bed, spacing out. Who knew what she was thinking? It's been so many days. How were they doing? Did they resolve the conflict with House Yu, Xiao family, and the hidden House Zhao? She was worried, but there was nothing she could do. She was locked up by the Grand Elder, and there were 2 elders who were no weaker than her guarding the room. She couldn't escape at all. Sometimes, Wanner wanted to die, but she knew that she couldn't. If she died, who would avenge her husband and daughter? Since things had come to this, she could only practice harder and break through to the heaven stage as soon as possible so that she could leave the mountain and take revenge for her husband and daughter. The sound of footsteps came from outside the door. Wanner froze. It wasn't time to eat. Logically speaking, the elder who was guarding her outside would not enter her room. Now that there were footsteps outside, there was no doubt that someone was coming. As expected, not long after, the room door was pushed open and the ones who entered were the Grand Elder and Elderly. Grand Elder Elderly. Wanner hated the Grand Elder for putting her under house arrest, but she didn't show any disrespect in front of her. After all, she knew that while the Grand Elder was stubborn and heartless, everything she did was for the good of the Dark Palace. She never got married in her life because she gave all her energy to the Palace of Darkness. Even in her dreams, she wanted the Palace of Darkness to become the #1 palace in the martial world. Wanner, you can leave now, the Great Elder announced her decision. Ah? Wanner heard the Great Elder's words and froze. She didn't think that the Great Elder would let her go. She couldn't help but look at Elderly in surprise. Was it because of his hard work? Elderly saw that Wanner was looking at him and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Congratulations, Palace Master, the son-in-law and the young miss, ahem. The Grand Elder interrupted before Elderly could finish. What son-in-law? Where's the son-in-law from? Elderly heard the Grand Elder's words and felt a little awkward. He quickly changed his words. It's Mr. Chu Pengzhan and Miss Chu Mengyao. They're fine now, they're safe. Ah! Wanner cried out in surprise. She couldn't help but be overjoyed. The worries she had for days were all gone. They were finally safe and sound. Wanner couldn't contain her joy. Elderly, did you do it? No, I was wrong this time. Linny wasn't injured. The common house Yu's brother, Yu Bide, was killed by Linny, and the Xiao family's guardian, Uncle Pai, was turned into a vegetable by Linny. House Chu's crisis is solved, Elderly said. That's great. The Palace Master let out a breath of relief. This Linny isn't simple. I didn't think that he would be able to solve this crisis. Wasn't he injured? Maybe he was faking it to make his opponents jump out. Elderly didn't know the crux of the matter. After all, even the people involved, House Yu and the Xiao family, didn't know the details. Naturally, Elderly didn't know the crux of the matter. Humph, just a few mystic class clowns. They're nothing. The Grand Elder didn't think much of Lin Yi. She only frowned and said disapprovingly, Wanner, you can leave now. With that, the Grand Elder turned and left. In fact, she was a bit depressed. Why didn't the bastard and the adulterer die? After he died, Wanner would have nothing to worry about, and she could break through to sky class without emotions. To a cultivator, it was never a good thing to be shackled by emotions. She was a heartless person. She had never been in love, and she didn't know how lovers felt. To her, feelings were all lies. Only strength mattered. After the Grand Elder left, Elderly let out a sigh of relief. Miss, the Grand Elder has always been like this. Don't hold a grudge against her, I know. Why would I hold a grudge? Her thoughts are different from mine, but her intentions are good. She did it for the Palace of Darkness. Yes. Elderly nodded and lowered his voice. Miss, although this time, the young miss and the young master made it through safely, but because of this, they've become enemies with House Yu and Shao family. The hidden House Yu behind House Yu, I wonder if they'll come out and help them? As for the Shao family's Uncle Pai, his background is not to be underestimated. His family is also a hidden house, and they have the support of the Sky Elixir sect. The Sky Elixir sect and the Palace of Darkness have always been at odds, I'm afraid this time. Warner thought that everything was over, but she didn't expect that it was just the beginning. House Yu had the hidden House Yu behind them. Among all the hidden houses, the hidden House Yu was the strongest, and was no weaker than an ancient sect. Chapter 1091. Chapter 1089. Deep as the sea. Chapter 1089. Deep as the sea. Once inside the palace gate, it is as deep as the sea. Didn't that mean that Pengzan and Meng Yao were still in danger? How should they deal with this? Thinking about this, Warner couldn't help but show a trace of anxiety on her face. She had regained her freedom, but there was nothing she could do. She couldn't just leave the mountain and stay with Pengzan and Meng Yao, could she? Plus, she might have regained her freedom, but whether or not she could leave the mountain was still unknown. She believed that the Grand Elder had already ordered her not to leave the mountain. Miss, we can't do anything about this right now. Fortunately, the hidden House Yu hasn't made any moves yet, and Uncle Pai's hidden house doesn't seem to know about this either. Elderly sighed. Right now, we can only wait and see. But the biggest threat to House Chu right now isn't House Yu and Uncle Pai's hidden house, but something else. Uncle Li, why are there other troubles? Warner, the palace master, asked worriedly. From what I know, Ma Zhu's Shifu, Jean Wudi, has already submitted an application to the Hidden House Council, preparing to come out and cause trouble for Lin Yi, to avenge his disciple. When that happens, it's hard to say whether or not House Chu will be affected. Elderly sighed, his face serious as he nodded. But what should we do? How strong is Ma Zhu's Shifu? Warner asked. According to my investigation, he's an Earth class, early phase Earth class, Elderly said. Plus, once his application is approved by the council, that Lin Yi won't be his match. Elderly, Warner begs you, could you inform Yao Yao's bodyguard, Lin Yi, about this as soon as possible? So that he can prepare for this? Warner knew that Elderly couldn't do anything, and she couldn't leave the mountain. She could only send a message through the Dark Shadow Group, and while they were skilled in Qigong, they weren't very strong. They couldn't be of much help at all, and the only thing they could do was send a message. Don't worry, Mississippi. This old servant can still do it. In the Dark Shadow Group, this old servant still has direct subordinates. This old servant will pass this news to Lin Yi as soon as possible. Elderly nodded and said, That's the only way. Sorry to trouble you, Uncle Li, Wana said helplessly. A trace of deep worry and sorrow flashed across her pretty face. As the saying goes, once you enter the palace gate, you will find yourself in the four seas. Although this palace was different from the other palace, there was no difference in principle. An off-road vehicle was driving on a mountain road with difficulty. Pin Liang was the driver, and Shifu was in the passenger seat. Brother Liang, we're going to see Pao soon. I'm so excited, Gao Shifu said as he looked out of the window. Don't talk nonsense later. There are martial arts masters here, and we're nothing in their eyes. Don't cause trouble. Pin Liang warned Xiaofu calmly. Don't worry, Liang bro, I know what I'm doing. Xiaofu nodded. He felt that Pin Liang had become a lot more introverted recently. He wasn't as arrogant as before, and was becoming more and more like Lin Yi's calmness. Pin Liang nodded and didn't say anything else. He continued driving. Half an hour later, the car stopped in front of a checkpoint. It wasn't a regular checkpoint, but one set up by the sect on the mountain. This place wasn't a tourist spot, nor was it a main road. People who weren't sent here wouldn't pass through here. What are you here for? A young man in black walked over and knocked on Pinliang's window. Pinliang quickly opened the window and said respectfully, "Hello, we're here to visit Zhang Naipeo." "Zhang Naipeo? Your brother Naipeo's friends?" The young man became respectful the moment he heard Naipeo's name, and his attitude towards Pinliang became much friendlier as well. "Yes, we're Naipeo's brothers. We're here to visit Brother Naipeo." Pinliang nodded, a little shocked inside. It seemed like Naipeo was doing quite well here. Pinliang had learned how to read people's body language now, and he knew that this young man was very respectful towards Naipeo. That was why he was being respectful towards Pinliang as well. Pinliang knew the rules here very well. The only way to gain respect was with your own strength. This person called Naipeo brother, but treated him with such respect. The only explanation was that Naipeo was very strong. He was already stronger than many of his brothers. At the thought, Pinliang couldn't help but feel excited. It seemed like he was right about Naipeo. He didn't think that Naipeo was a practitioner as well. Pinliang couldn't wait to find out just how high Naipeo's training had reached. "Brother Zhang, stand guard here for a bit. I'll bring them up the mountain. They're Brother Naipeo's friends," the young man said to another man not far away. The other man's face turned serious upon hearing Naipeo's name. He nodded. "All right, leave it to me." The road above was closed, and Pinliang and Shifu got off the car and followed the young man up the mountain. After a while, Pinliang and Shifu's stamina was visibly drained, but the young man was running like he wasn't bothered by the rugged path at all. In fact, as the lowest-ranked patrolling disciple, he had to run up and down the mountain a couple of times a day. This was something he was used to. "Bro, your stamina is pretty good, but we can't," Pinliang said, panting. "I'm just the lowest-ranked disciple, but Brother Naipeo." "Haha, he's much stronger than me," the young man said enviously. Pinliang was even more surprised after hearing the man's words. He didn't know what Naipeo was capable of, but it seemed like he was doing quite well here. This guy had already praised him a couple of times. If it wasn't for the fact that he was really powerful, it was fine to compliment him once, but he wouldn't have complimented him so many times. "Is Naipeo very strong now?" Xiaofu couldn't help but ask. Chapter 1092. Up the mountain the more the young man said, the more shocked Pinliang and Shifu were. It seemed like Naipeo had paid a huge price for his training. The mountain path was a little rough at the beginning, but it was a smooth path after that. The closer they got to the gate, the easier it was. This place must have been specially built. "We're here." The young man pointed at the mountain gate not too far away. "You may be Junior Naipeo's friends, but according to the sect's rules, outsiders have to report first before they can enter. Come with me to register." "All right." Pinliang, naturally, didn't dare act rashly. This was a powerful existence, after all, and he didn't dare show any disrespect. Pinliang and Naipeo followed the young man to register their identities and undergo a strength check. After confirming that there was nothing suspicious, the young man led the two into the gate. In actuality, with the strength of the sect, they weren't afraid of people coming to attack them at all. Who'd have the guts to attack an ancient sect? It was one of the evilest sects in the ancient sects, too, the everyday sect. This was an existence even stronger than the hidden houses. Even the other righteous sects had to respect them, let alone someone who dared come here to attack them. But rules were rules, and this was a tradition that had been passed down for many years. Pinliang saw a lot of disciples practicing martial arts as soon as he entered the mountain gate. It was a sight that made him envious. "These are the most normal outer disciples, not even as strong as me. They're just beginners," the young man explained faintly, as if reading Pinliang's mind. "These people aren't talented enough, and they can only practice some basic physical skills. They don't want to suffer, so their achievements are limited." "Oh," Pinliang nodded. "Then Naipeo is an inner disciple, and he was personally taken in as a disciple by Master Kwangyo, Mr. Ihing. The young man was even more envious now. Master Kwangyo? Pinliang blinked. He's the chief enforcer of our everyday sect, a super strong man, the young man said respectfully. He once killed a sky class from a righteous sect with a single punch. Huh? Pinliang sucked in a breath of cold air. From his point of view, mystic rank masters were already super invincible. How could there be someone here who could kill a heaven realm master? Wouldn't that make him invincible? Pinliang couldn't help but get excited at the thought. This meant that Nai Pao had gotten Master Kwangyo's favor, and as long as he learned 10% of Master Kwangyo's strength, killing Lin Yi would be a piece of cake. That's right. That's the chief protector of our sect. How could it be a joke? The young man said proudly. Of course, he was bragging a little, and Zhong Pinliang didn't know about it. Pinliang was shocked, but he kept a straight face. Xiaofu, on the other hand, was grinning from ear to ear. He didn't expect Naipeo's sect to be this strong. Back when Hebao Bro was beaten to a pulp by Lin Yi, Xiaofu was traumatized. He thought that Hebao Bro was just SOSO, but he didn't expect his sect to be this strong. It was just that Hebao Bro wasn't strong enough. Pinliang, on the other hand, was thinking about something else. He was thinking that Hebao Bro could use a practitioner's arts to forcefully raise his strength from a normal person to golden class early phase. This was a little too much. How could a sect with a technique like this be a normal sect? Although it required the sacrifice of one's life, other sects might not be able to do it. And so Pinliang had high hopes for Naipeo. Of course, Pinliang didn't explain this to Xiaofu. After walking for a while, the three came to a very beautiful place. There were flowers everywhere, but no one was there. The scenery was beautiful, but Pinliang couldn't help but shiver. There was an evil presence here, and it made him very uncomfortable. Gao Shifu was the same. He felt like he was trembling. This is the place. The young man came here, his face pale as well. He wasn't having a good time either. Naipeo junior brother is practicing in front, but the evil energy here is too thick. I can't handle it with my strength, so I can only bring you here. Ah? It's so cold and evil here. Even you can't go in, how can we? Pinliang said carefully. Bro, maybe you can call for Naipeo? Tell him to stop practicing and stop for a bit? No, interrupting Naipeo junior brother's practicing is a huge offense. I wouldn't dare. The young man shook his head. Call him yourself if you want to. I can't take the blame if Naipeo junior brother blames me. That's fine. Pinliang nodded. But you have to tell me first, where is Naipeo junior brother? Over there. The young man pointed not far away. That's Naipeo junior brother. Huh. Pinliang paused and looked in the direction the young man was pointing. What he saw surprised him. What entered his eyes was a lump of black stuff. On the beautiful grass was a black object. If one didn't look closely, they'd think it was a reef, but this was the place the young man was talking about. Bro, you're talking about Naipeo? Him? Pinliang was confused. Big bro, you mean Naipeo? Yes. The young man nodded. Oh. Pinliang didn't know what to say, but he still called out to the black rock. John Naipeo! Naipeo was practicing when he heard someone call him. He frowned, a little pissed off. After all, no one was allowed to disturb him when he was practicing. Even Kwangyo Grand Master's people had to wait until he was done before calling him. But this voice. It was very familiar. Naipeo opened his eyes abruptly as he remembered the owner of the voice. He stood up abruptly and waved his hand, dispersing the black object on his body. It turned out that the black layer on Naipeo's body was actually a swarm of black wasps. Chapter 1093. Chapter 1091. You've been tricked. Liang bro! Naipeo stood up and ran towards the owner of the voice. It was obvious that he was extremely excited right now. Naipeo! Pinliang didn't think that Naipeo would have a layer of wasps on himself. It made his heart palpitate, and excited at the same time. It seemed like Naipeo's kung fu was quite extraordinary. Seeing that Naipeo's disciple knew who he was, the young man stepped back and said his goodbyes. He called Naipeo disciple in the sect, but Naipeo's position and strength had far surpassed his. Other than the fact that they were disciples, the two were completely different. "Liang bro, I didn't think that you'd come to see me." Naipeo, on the other hand, was very excited. He thought that he wouldn't be able to see Pin Liang again after going up the mountain, other than when he went down. But Pin Liang actually took the time to come see him. This was very touching. "You're my brother, and you're training hard for me. Naturally, I have to come see you often," Pin Liang said solemnly. He'd learned how to win people's hearts a long time. He knew that Naipeo would be of great use to him in the future. Naturally, he was very close to him. "Liang bro, don't say that. You're my boss, and you always will be. If it weren't for you, my family would have died a long time ago. My life is yours. If you tell me to go east, I'll never go west," Naipeo said solemnly. "Good. Very good. Pao, I was right about you," Pin Liang said excitedly as he patted Naipeo's shoulder. "Right, Pao, what kind of kung fu are you training? Why is it so scary? There's so much evil energy around here." "I'm training in the wasp absorption arts." Naipeo didn't hide anything, telling Pin Liang what he was training in. "Wasp absorption arts?" Pin Liang blinked. "Does that have anything to do with absorbing stars?" "Nope, wasp absorption arts is a skill that absorbs bee venom. I'm using bee venom to increase my strength," Naipeo explained. "There's too little chi in the world right now, and it'd be hard to improve with normal training. Our day after day sect is a demonic sect, and we rely on absorbing evil poisons to quickly increase our strength. It's similar to absorbing true chi, but our cultivation process is much more arduous and difficult." "I see," Pin Liang nodded. No wonder that Master Kuangyo was so strong, able to kill a sky-class master. There was a reason behind it. The martial arts they cultivated were all evil, different from the orthodox sects. "Since you're from the devil sect, have there been any righteous sects that have come to cause trouble for you?" Pin Liang asked subconsciously. He didn't need to hide his thoughts in front of Naipeo. He could tell that Naipeo really thought of him as his boss, so Pin Liang didn't need to hide anything. "Righteous sect?" Naipeo smiled. "Liang bro, you're talking about something from a wuxia novel, right? In reality, these sects prioritize their own interests. Why would they have the time to find trouble with us for no reason? Wasn't he crazy? He couldn't even take care of his own business. Why would he go find trouble with others? Plus, normal sects do a lot of dirty things as well. From what I know, the famous Sky Elixir sect is a sect that relies on plundering, killing, and pillaging. They specialize in doing evil things." "I see." Pin Liang didn't know what was going on, but after hearing Naipeo's explanation, he realized that he was overthinking things. The devil sect was a powerful sect as well. He was afraid that Naipeo would become the public enemy of the sects, and if Lin Yi couldn't beat him, he'd join forces with the other righteous sects to wipe out the devil sect disciples. That wouldn't be good, but it seemed like there wouldn't be that much of a problem now. "So you're practicing the wasp absorption arts now? What level are you at now?" Pin Liang asked quickly. "Liang bro, this wasp absorption arts is just a supplementary practitioner's art. My main skill is called the chrysanthemum arts, an exclusive skill of the day after day sect. After mastering it, I'll be invincible." Naipeo didn't hide anything from Pin Liang. "Chrysanthemum arts?" Pin Liang paused. The name sounded really special, and it sounded really powerful. "Can I learn it, Pao?" Pin Liang asked. "Can I learn it, Pao?" "Of course, but the process is very tiring. Here's the manual, why don't you take a look first?" Naipeo handed a book to Pin Liang. If Pin Liang really wanted to practice it, with Naipeo's current position in the sect, he'd only need to say the word. Pin Liang didn't think that Naipeo would be this easygoing, even giving him the manual. He quickly took it and flipped it open, but the first page gave him quite the shock. There were 8 words on the first page. To practice this skill, One must first castrate themselves. Pin Liang started sweating profusely. No way! He had to castrate himself to practice this skill? Wouldn't that make him a eunuch? Pow! Don't tell me you've already. Pin Liang said carefully as he pointed at the words on the book. That's right. Nai Peo sighed and nodded. I'm a eunuch now. Ah? Then I guess I won't train anymore. Pin Liang's face darkened as he shook his head. I'll be fine as long as I have a good brother like you to train with. I'll be relying on you from now on. No, Liang bro, I was too impatient back then. You can look at the last page. Nai Peo pointed at the chrysanthemum arts. All right. Pin Liang nodded and picked up the chrysanthemum arts, flipping to the next page. There were 8 more words on the last page. Even castrating yourself may not succeed. That's... Pin Liang was dumbfounded. There was a chance of failure. Even if he castrated himself, he might not succeed. All the more reason he couldn't practice this skill. What if he didn't succeed after castrating himself? Wouldn't that be even worse? There's more. Nai Peo pointed at the chrysanthemum arts. Ugh! Pin Liang paused and flipped to the 3rd page. There were 8 more words. Success without castrating yourself. Pin Liang's eyes went wide. Seriously? Pal, you've been tricked? Chapter 1094. Chapter 1092. Careful after hearing Nai Peo's words, even someone as calculative as Pin Liang felt touched. This was a good brother of his. Pin Liang patted Nai Peo's shoulder. You really are a good brother, Nai Peo. It's good that you've thought things through. I've thought it through a long time ago. If I hadn't been so ruthless as to castrate myself, I wouldn't have been able to gain the favor of Patriarch Mad Bull. He took me in as an unnamed disciple and taught me the wasp absorption technique. Nai Peo shook his head nonchalantly. Liang bro, there's always a loss. My talent is decent, but if I didn't castrate myself, I wouldn't have been able to stand out amongst these disciples. Oh? Nai Peo, your talent is decent? Pin Liang was a bit surprised. Training required talent, and he knew that, but he didn't expect Nai Peo's talent to be this good. Yes, training in demonic arts requires talent as well, but according to Master Kuang-Neo, the more evil a person is, the easier it is for them to train in demonic arts. Absorbing the wasp venom isn't something that a righteous person can train in. Nai Peo said. Haha, us 3 brothers are the best when it comes to being evil and evil. Pin Liang laughed. That means that I'm quite suited for this art as well, but letting those wasps sting me. Just the thought of it scares me. Forget it. Right, Nai Peo, what's your strength right now? I'm golden class late phase peak now, and I'll be breaking through in a few days. When I break through to mystic, it'll be Lin Yi's time of death. Nai Peo said confidently. When that time comes, I'll go down the mountain and help Liang bro vent his anger. You can't. Pin Liang jumped. On one hand, he was shocked at how fast Nai Peo's strength had increased, but on the other hand, he didn't want Nai Peo to go down the mountain and die. You can't? What do you mean? Nai Peo paused. Pow, as far as I know, Lin Yi is at least in the early phase of the mystic class. Pin Liang said. Plus, there's a mystic mid-phase physical practitioner who's no match for Lin Yi. Lin Yi's already crippled him. You can't let your guard down. Ah? How did Lin Yi become so powerful? When I left, wasn't he only at the late phase of the golden class? Nai Peo was taken aback. He didn't think that Lin Yi would level up in this time. One had to know that the proper mental cultivation method was to absorb spiritual energy from the natural world, which made the cultivation process incomparably slow. In those places with abundant spiritual energy, the speed was not as fast as the devil sect kung fu, let alone in the city. How did Lin Yi cultivate? Yes. Pin Liang nodded solemnly. That's right, Pow. Lin Yi is indeed that strong. He's a mystic early-phase spiritual practitioner, and he can injure him with ease. We can't let our guard down. Before we have absolute strength, we can't make an enemy out of him. Unless we have absolute strength and can kill Lin Yi in one hit, then we can't make a move. From what I know, not only can Lin Yi heavily injure a practitioner of the same level, but he can also beat someone of a higher level. He's really hard to deal with. He's that strong? Nai Peo's face turned serious after hearing Pin Liang's words. Nai Peo knew very well what kind of person Pin Liang was. He wouldn't put others down for no reason. There had to be a reason behind what he was saying, and so Nai Peo had to be very careful about it. If that's the case, then unless I'm a mystic late phase or even an earth class, I won't be able to beat Lin Yi. It looks like I won't be able to leave the mountain anytime soon. Yes, if we don't have absolute confidence in winning, then we'll have to endure it. Pin Liang sighed. Pao, I'll be honest with you, I'm really having a hard time right now. I have a lot of enemies, but I have no choice but to endure it. Oh? What enemies? Nai Peo paused. Liang bro, what happened to you? Your Liang bro, had my kidney removed. Zhong Ping Liang sighed. I'm a man with only one kidney now. What? Liang bro, your kidney was cut off? Who did this? Nai Peo's face paled as he looked at Pin Liang in shock. You wouldn't know even if I told you now. Never mind, we'll wait until you leave the mountain and take revenge. You just need to know that I'm having a hard time. Pao, you have to work hard. Pin Liang made himself sound so pitiful because he wanted to ignite Nai Peo's fighting spirit so that he could train harder in the future. Don't worry, Liang bro. I understand, I'll work harder and become an earth class. Nai Peo swore. And, after seeing you today, Xiaofu and I are confident. We know that our day of revenge isn't far. Pin Liang nodded. Right, is there anything you need here? It's nothing. I don't lack anything here. I just train every day, I don't have anything else to do. Nai Peo shook his head. Alright, then Xiaofu and I are relieved to see you. We won't disturb your training, we'll leave the mountain first. We'll come see you another day, Pin Liang said. Alright, I'll send you guys off. Nai Peo nodded. Man, there's no car in your sect. Walking back is so tiring. Pin Liang sighed. One of his kidneys had been cut off, and his stamina wasn't what it used to be. Liang bro, I'll take you with me, Nai Peo said casually. You'll take me with you? Pin Liang blinked. Nai Peo smiled faintly as he held Shifu and Pin Liang by his sides, running down the mountain. Pin Liang and Xiaofu jumped in fright, not expecting Nai Peo to be this strong, running so fast with a person in each hand. Nai Peo was only a golden class late phase. It wasn't hard to imagine that Lin Yi had gone easy on the three, otherwise they would have been killed by Lin Yi long ago. Yurin had been very troubled these past 2 days. He'd been frowning all the time, but he didn't dare tell his wife and daughter about it. He wished that this was just a dream, but he knew that it wasn't a dream. Scorpion had come to the market looking for Yurin yesterday, telling him that today was the deadline for him to return the money. Man! Yurin sighed as he looked at his broken furniture. He didn't know what to do anymore. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.